On this Thursday morning, boys, for the first time in over a week, the glasses did not fog up. We have reached the end of the tunnel. We have found water in the Sahara. The skies opened up yesterday, and I think we won't melt today. Keyword is think on that one.
I did not check the weather, quite honestly. Thank you for all waking up listening to us this morning as we give you the weather, non-weather update. But I will take it.
It's such an old man, Kevin's clearly a dad when he's talking about the weather at 7:01 in the morning. I do think it's supposed to be hot, but not like swelteringly hot.
I'll tell you what, I think my family will still be disappointed that I don't check the weather as much as I probably should.
I know, it kind of stresses me out, to be honest with you. That's the voice of James Boyd. I'm Kevin Bowen, Mark Dighton. Mark, good morning to you.
Thank you. I'm looking at my weather app. I never know if it's accurate, but yeah, 90s, 80s, and looks like quite a bit of rain over the weekend.
Again, that is the worst app in the history
of
apps. We got a lot to get to on this.
You sound like an old man right now.
Thursday morning.
My knee hurts too.
We will recap day one of night one of the NBA draft. The Pacers, right now, they've got two picks here upcoming tonight. So we'll talk about their trade from yesterday. We will get to the Fever back at home, a rare home game right now for the Fever, given their schedule, and a big roster move yesterday that we had kind of hinted at throughout the show. It happened right after we signed off. And it sounds like we're getting a Colts training camp schedule release today, I believe. Matt Taylor going to join us at 8. Is that correct, Mark?
That's my understanding.
So the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, hopping on with us at 8 o'clock. We know a joint practice with the Packers just won. We know it'll be a quiet week at Grand Park, August 4th through the 7th. The Colts will be down in Baltimore for a joint practice and a preseason game there, but we'll try to fill you in on the times and the dates. When is there a night practice? Things like that. I guess. That'll get announced here sometime during the show. If not, we'll talk with Matt Taylor. Coming up at 8 o'clock.
You guys need that info, too, just because you want to plan your summers.
Selfishly, I am very happy about that. Yes, indeed.
We're going to be out there all day, every day. Do we know that yet?
I am a huge fan of the morning practices doing the show before that. Mark, you have clipped out, I believe at one point I picked up, was it cow dung?
Well, you thought it was grass clippings for some reason, and Jake very easily reminded you that is a turd, Kevin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I picked it up and disposed of it as it should have been. Not with the bare hands, James Boyd, but
I was so confused at first. Like, man, you are one person who does not fear certain things in life.
Yeah, it was a I still think you could make a case that it was just simply grass clippings. Just a clump of it that happened to be together, but Mark was pretty adamant that it was animal dung.
That was in the final stretch of querying Kevin and Query.
That might have
that kind of tells you what happened. Whoa, what the hell was that?
Was that the final air out of the balloon?
Yeah.
You think it was for Kevin and Query there in the mornings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
probably.
That
was kind of the sign of the times.
Yeah, that's probably safe.
I'll take this down in my notes. Don't talk about dung. Don't pick up dung. All right.
Now, we get the crows at Grand Park. They're very loud in the mornings there, especially when we're doing our shows from up there. So, again, Matt Taylor going to join us coming up here at 8. I do feel like we should, and I very rarely do this, James, but I texted Scott Agnes yesterday. He's going to join us at 8:30, and I go, Scott, heads up. We need an education on the luxury tax. We need to educate us. My hand is raised. We need to educate our audience on it. I did a little bit of homework myself, but when Scott Agnes joins us at 8:30, I think we'll get to that. Because, for example, the trade the Pacers made last night, or yesterday afternoon, I guess I should say, they traded a future second-round pick and cash for the 38th selection tonight. So right now, as we sit here, 13 hours ahead of round 2, the Pacers have the 38th pick and the 54th pick. That trade they executed last night, if they get into the luxury tax, which at this point almost seems like a foregone conclusion, they can't do that trade. Part of the restrictions when you're in the luxury tax is not that the dollar costs more. That is a huge part of it. But also, you have your hands tied in the sorts of mechanisms the NBA allows you to do from a roster building standpoint. One of those is sending cash out in a trade. And that has been a frequent resource the Pacers have used.
Yes.
We have seen them execute several trades in recent years where they have sent cash out or absorbed cash in. So, again, that is just a little bit on the, hey, once you dip your toes in the luxury tax, you're not allowed to go to the deep end for certain things.
Yeah.
And that's one of them.
And from what I understand, the acquisition of another second-round pick allows you to gives you more flexibility with the contract, how you structure it, how many years, what's guaranteed, what's non-guaranteed. So if you're looking at, okay, we might be in luxury tax, we will have more flexibility if we have this second-round pick versus having, let's say, a late first-round pick, where that contract might be guaranteed. Second-round pick, you have more flexibility to, have built-in guarantees, non-guarantees. And in theory, you basically get a cheaper player. So if you're thinking, hey, we might want to get somebody at 38 who would hopefully be in our rotation or hopefully be a part of our 15-man roster, not including the extra two-way players, then perhaps we should make a move to position ourselves to get someone that will be cheap and flexible.
I actually have a name or two that I'm kind of curious about at 38 overall tonight for the Pacers. Last year, Johnny Furphy was, 34, 35, right there in that range. Andrew Nembhard a little bit earlier in the 30s. We've seen Lance Stevenson around pick 40. So we'll see if the Pacers can strike something here tonight. So we'll get you set for that. Anything stand out to you guys round one of the draft? I swore I heard Michael Grady's voice in the background all last night. Was he on the PA inside the Barclays Center? Was I the only one that caught that?
I caught it at a bar last night with no volume, so I can't really tell you.
Gosh, that was the best way to watch the draft. Good work by you.
Why do you say that? Was the broadcast that bad?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was obviously bad, but I guess when the Pacers don't have a pick, maybe I was just bored as hell watching it. I don't know, Mark, did you have any excitement watching the draft?
Well, it involved me having to watch the draft at all, which I did not, because I was like, well, the Pacers don't have a draft pick, so what are we doing here? I already know Cooper Flag is going number 1, and the Bears season 4 dropped, so Ashley and I watched that instead.
John Calipari didn't have a first-round pick for the first time since 2009.
That's crazy that streak was that long, honestly. I know he's a great coach, has coached great players, but wow, especially from a team that was pretty good this past season.
Honestly,
nice run.
My ears perked up. The first time they perked up, no Kendrick Perkins reference there. Malika Andrews, right before I think it was the Raptors were about to pick at 9, all of a sudden I hear a TJ McConnell name drop. And I'm thinking, the Pacers have just made a long playoff run. When TJ bleeping McConnell gets his name set on the NBA draft.
Player comp?
But it was not a player comp before pick 10. It was, I guess, a comp to the quality. She referenced a TJ McConnell quote of playing hard as a skill. And I forget exactly. Maybe it was the South Carolina dude that got drafted. Who I saw had 2 points against IU earlier this year. It is amazing looking at some of these resumes. Some of the players that got drafted. Ace Bailey to the Jazz at 5. I know there's a lot of intrigue on that. The Jazz come away with Ace Bailey and then Walter Clayton Jr. They traded up for number 18. So 2 notable names from a collegiate standpoint. And as my eyes were certainly struggling to stay awake, I finally called it a night at about pick 25. You did have some Big Ten flavor, some IU ties, if you will, in the 20s. The Caspers, your boy from Illinois, he went to the Heat at 20. Danny Wolf, the Michigan big man, to the Nets at 27. And former Indiana commit Liam McNeely. Kind of a fall for him. I thought I saw him a lot higher. He went 29 to Charlotte.
I will say I had a chance to see Jeremiah Fears, who went number 7 from Oklahoma to the Pelicans. He played at Joliet West High School, up where we are from, Mark, and I got a chance to see him play in high school. And that kid was very good back then. I did not know I was watching any future NBA player, a future lottery pick, but man, he's pretty good. His older brother plays at Michigan State, so I saw a lot of congratulatory messages on my timeline last night towards that young man who is one heck of a player, and now he gets a chance to chase his dream.
So we'll set the scene for the Pacers coming up tonight again. Right now, currently, they've got 2 picks if they would like. What exactly should they be looking for? Things like that we'll hit on. I have a really poor attempt at a Jake Query analogy. I might save for later in the show just because hopefully our audience won't be as robust then, but it's a really pathetic attempt. But I feel like, you know what, might as well throw it out there. It's all my hell. I started off the show talking about the weather, so might as well go there. Coming up 9 o'clock hour. And James Boyd the Fever back inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse tonight, a heavy favorite over the LA Sparks. And yesterday we saw the news, again, right after we signed off, the wave of DeWanna Bonner I sat there.
Signing of
Yes, Ari McDonald, who has played well for this team. I thought she was the emergency medical hardship point guard that they needed.
Played 3 games and was balling
When Caitlin Clark was out. I still think they need some depth in the front court, especially because Damiris Dantas, who plays well for them, I think off the bench. I kind of like her role. She's now off with Brazil, playing for her country to try and make the Olympics. She's weird. I'm thinking to myself, why aren't these games in the offseason? But whatever. She's now away from the team for the next 2 weeks, so she'll miss multiple games here for the Fever. But, I think I naturally do this. I don't know if you find yourself doing this at all, but like in the market, whenever teams do something good or bad, I find myself like just making analogies to the other sports teams in the market. So, Colts, Pacers, Fever, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought to myself with this DeWanna Bonner news yesterday, could you imagine if Chris Ballard gave out one of the most notable free agent contracts in the history of the franchise, and that player came to your franchise, came to the Colts, was benched within the first couple of weeks of playing for that team, and then was cut a month later? It's not like you got anything in return for DeWanna Bonner, just flat out cut. You have a third-string point guard. That's who you signed yesterday in returns of her. I know the value of the DeWanna Bonner contract might not resonate when you say the number out loud, but $200,000 for a WNBA contract is very significant. And that's what DeWanna Bonner got last year. So no matter how you slice it, whether you want to say, hey, DeWanna Bonner, whatever, mentally she didn't, whatever fit. You misevaluated her on the floor, and clearly you misevaluated how she would fit off the floor. What a wild miss by the Fever.
Absolutely, and DeWanna Bonner finally spoke, or at least through a statement, said, despite our shared goals and excitement heading into the season, I felt that the fit did not work out, and I appreciate the organization's willingness to grant my request to move on, particularly at this point in my career. She's 16 years into her WNBA career. She said 4 months ago the reason she came here was to win a championship, to get back to the finals. Caitlin Clark said, I want to win for her. This is the end of her career. She deserves it. That was 2 months ago, and she is no longer on the team. So I don't really want to hear I'm not saying you should be rude on the way out towards her, but for anyone who's like, oh, man, well, wish her the best of luck. If fans are upset, that is well within their right, because in essence, it looks like you quit on the team. So I know professionally you have your obligations to yourself. You have to be selfish with your career to some degree, but the optics are not good. And I'm just curious to see what happens next. Do you end up going to the Phoenix Mercury to join your fiance, Alyssa Thomas, which was one of your choices before you came to the Fever? Because to me, it was like, oh, you came here because you thought you were going to get a shot at a ring, but also you wanted to perhaps have a bigger role. I believe she hasn't come off the bench in several years.
Yeah, it's like over a decade.
But you're also 37. And quite honestly, I don't know if anybody told her this. You did not play well. I don't know if that's all on the team structure. I mean, some of the shots you're taking and missing, I was there. I watched the game. She did not play well. So I'm just curious to see if she ends up somewhere else. Do you play better, and do you get a bigger role? Because those teams are already established as well.
And, I think we can live in the moment for the most part, but it's just one of these things where, as an organization, when you're trying to build around the star of all stars, that is Caitlin Clark, you are allowed a swing or two that misses. But repeated offenses of this realm, not only is it a stain on the franchise in whatever perceived fit, was there any sort of, hey, if you get benched, will you be, or if you come off the bench, is there more of an acceptance of that role here? So Fever back at home tonight, on the road at Dallas tomorrow. It's a back-to-back before, I would say, a much-needed 6 days off. And honestly, probably Caitlin Clark needs it the most, as she is 1 of 23 from 3 here in her last 3 games. Mark Dyke, let's do a little ticket giveaway. You said a pair to the Indy 11 women's game tomorrow night?
Yes, sir.
All right, 317-239-1070. Pair of tickets, reward those here in the opening segment. That's the Indy 11, I believe, versus Dayton coming up tomorrow night at Grand Park. pair of tickets to go see them. Fan Morning Show here on a Thursday. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
That's a turd.
And 107.5 The Fan.
All right, coming up in a bit, what the hell is the luxury tax and what are the restrictions on it? We'll educate ourselves a little bit there and also look at maybe a prospect or two for the Pacers tonight. And James Boyd, let's begin there. We did see some news yesterday afternoon, and as we sit here about 13 hours ahead of round 2 of the NBA draft, the Pacers now have 2 second-round picks.
Yes, so they traded a future 2030 second-round pick that they previously acquired from the Kings in the Chris Duarte trade to acquire the number 38 pick in tonight's second round of the NBA draft, along with already having the number 54 pick. Or 2 picks.
Yeah, 38 and 50, so they'll have the 8th selection tonight, so they'll pick relatively early, all things considered, assuming everything goes according to plan. Again, that is 8 o'clock tonight. Round 1, I wouldn't say a ton of fireworks, even league-wide. You know, we didn't have the big trade anywhere really throughout yesterday, unless I'm missing something. I don't think there was anything too crazy there. Dylan Harper went number 2 to the Spurs, so there's Victor Wembanyama adding another guard around him. Ace Bailey, a lot of intrigue on where the other Rutgers product would go. That was number 5 to the Jazz, although some conflicting reports on whether he wants to be there or not. So, again, I'd say relatively a quiet night 1 of the NBA draft.
The one thing that always confuses me about the NBA draft is like all the trades that happen, and then when they try to explain where the pick originated from. So it's like,
yeah,
this guy that got drafted from the Nets, it was from Milwaukee via New York. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah, again, I mean, we just brought up the luxury tax. The NBA generally confuses the hell out of their fans.
Yes.
They do such a poor job of that. And I would argue, I saw Bobby Marks mention this, and Bobby does a great job on ESPN. He mentioned this when he was on with JMV the other day. They've got to change the postseason calendar, the offseason calendar, I should say.
Start the new league year.
He mentioned starting free agency on June 30th. Mm-hmm. So think about it. Game 7 went to June 22nd. That obviously is rare. You know, usually it's like early to mid-June you end the finals.
Yeah.
Start free agency June 30th. Get free agency done like the NFL does. They do free agency before the draft. Do the draft then on July 10th. Summer League July 20th. Like that schedule cadence, I think, is a little bit easier to follow. I then think you would get the hat gate figured out. You wouldn't have to wear different team
because
hats.
your new league year would start earlier.
Correct.
It's like a high schooler committing to like a college. They got all the hats all over the place.
So true. So true. All right, tonight, speaking of NBA, I guess, venues, is the Barclays Center for the draft last night and tonight. Gainbridge Fieldhouse in use tonight. The Fever back at home. They are a significant favorite. I want to say Amazon Prime. I think maybe some Bally action, FanDuel action for you tonight if you don't have Amazon Prime there. A heavy favorite over the LA Sparks. The Sparks have not been very good, especially as of late. Is Grace Berger still with the Sparks? Probably should look that up. See. I saw Mackenzie Holmes, who I don't believe got in the game the other night. She was with the Seattle Storm, but I thought that's where Grace Berger was. But the Sparks have been very bad. They've lost 4 in a row, all by double digits, a couple of them pretty significantly. So that is who the opponent is tonight.
If she's there, she's not on the roster on ESPN's website.
She was on a hardship contract, and that ended, I believe, when they got some players back from injury.
Got it. So we know, again, Dewana Bonner has been waived. Damiris Dantas, who plays a good role off the bench for the Fever, she is off with Team Brazil for the next couple of weeks. So the front court depth will be tested a bit, and we'll see about Caitlin Clark. Not on the injury report, right, James? I know Debbie Antonelli mentioned on the broadcast the other night, you know, where is she at physically coming back from that quad injury. But not only the poor shooting, but again, in that West Coast trip, 3 games, 22 turnovers for Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. To be quite honest, I would love for someone to ask, hey, how are you feeling? Because I don't necessarily go there myself when someone plays poorly. Oh, they must not be feeling well. No. If she's not on the injury report, she's just playing bad. And it's okay to say that. I mean, she would say that herself, I believe. So she'll have to pick it up tonight. But the good thing about it is there are other players on the team that are still very, very good, and they worked it out previously with kind of her poor game against the Seattle Storm. Shout out to Aaliyah Boston, who's having a great season. And if they rely on Aaliyah Boston again tonight, it's not a bad option at all.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, to beat the Sparks, they don't need Caitlin Clark at her best by any means. But yeah, Leah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hall was good the other night. So Fever in action, 7 o'clock tonight. It'll be a back-to-back there in Dallas on Friday. Mark Dykton, the Cubs are good.
That was a good salvaging of the series, an 8-0 shutout of the St. Louis Cardinals where the fans aren't showing up. Have you seen any pictures of the crowd at Busch Stadium for Cubs Cardinals?
Yeah,
27,000 on one day. I mean, I know it's been hot, but like, come on now.
I mean, the Cardinals are routinely, aren't they hovering like around 40?
Yeah, normally. Cubs-Cardinals is usually a sellout, no questions asked. And
right, yeah, especially Cubs. Yeah, that is a good point
I accidentally turned into like an athletics game the other day. Like, where are the people at?
Reds lose to the Yankees yesterday. Indianapolis Indians. I think they had a Lego day yesterday. I believe it's dinosaur action this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I think we're heading out there
Sunday.
My oldest is a huge dinosaur fan, so I think we're doing that on Sunday.
How long does the dinosaur phase last? Because I'm like, man, I feel like I was the kid who loved dinosaurs, and then one day I was like,
man, right now with Max Bowen, I don't think it's ever going to end.
Yeah, same here. We've got mountains of Jurassic Park toys and all that. She's already counting down to when the new one comes out. And
I like this. Okay.
It's never ending, I don't think.
I'm either a daddy T-Rex or I'm Donkey Kong pretty much every other day. So that's pretty much my life once I head home here. I also saw with the Indians, they'll have a game on July 4th coming up here.
Oh, God bless them.
The 28th straight year they've played a game on July 4th. Is that like a AAA tradition that the Indians somehow
I am not sure
started and got? It's like the Colts losing in week 1.
Do people go? Like, is it?
Yeah, fireworks and everything.
It's one of their highest attended games ever. I mean,
I was like, well, if it's like a staple in the community, then
it's like a huge ordeal. Yeah, coming up a week from Friday.
If you get comp tickets or something, like to redeem for a game, they say any game but July 4th because July 4th is their biggest event.
You know what so freaks me out? Not freaks me out, but kind of surprised me about living in Indiana. I get reminded of living in Indiana is when I see all the fireworks stores. I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw Hopcat in Broad Ripple is now a fireworks store. I'm like,
boy, that's a sad look.
I'm like, that is such a sad look. I'm like, gosh, the amount of drinks I've had in that place, and now imagine a bottle rocket being shot off.
Man.
All right, upcoming on the other side, again, we got some Colts training camp scheduled news to get to here in a little bit. Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, will join us at 8, but can we explain the luxury tax at all? We'll give a half-ass effort at it coming up on the other side. And what should the Pacers be looking for at 38 overall? We'll touch on that as well. Fan Morning Show right here, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio. You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Well, good Thursday morning to you, Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, and Mark Dykton. We'll have voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, joining us coming up here in the 8 o'clock hour. Colts scheduled to announce their training camp schedule here a little bit later today. I believe it's their... Thinking about this during the break. I was counting on my fingers if you guys were wondering what the hell I was doing over here. I think it's their 7th year at Grand Park. I want to say the 2020 camp was, of course, at their facility because of COVID. But I believe 2018 was their first visit to Grand Park. I want to say this is year 7 for them. And James, you know this. There's not a lot of teams that are camping off-site. Not a lot of teams that have open practices either.
Do we like the camping off-site?
Oh, yeah, I think it's great for your fan base. I think it's awesome. Yeah, I think it's tremendous.
It's one of the best things for a fan base that, NFL tickets are not cheap. So if you can't afford that every year, it's a nice way to get up close and personal with the players, get some autographs.
Close. I mean, Mark, you've brought the girls. Mm-hmm. I mean, for those that have never been to a Grand Park Colts training camp practice, don't even think of it like a high school field where there's a track around the field. Like, you are very close to the players.
Yeah, it's
closer
than you'll ever get to them at a game. You're
easily.
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear the players talking.
Yeah.
And we'll see how much, I'm trying to think last year, did they cost, for some reason I feel like last year they maybe cost money for the first time. Maybe that was just like the night practices.
Yeah, I believe it was maybe something like $5 or something.
Yeah, and it went to like the Colts Foundation or
but even then, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what a game will cost you. And it is the best access you will get to NFL players in the league.
Get a lot of signatures if you're into that sort of thing as well.
Right. And again, there's only about 5-6 teams in the entire league that continue to do this. So we'll await training camp schedule being announced here later today. Reminder, the Pacers did add a second-round pick yesterday, so they will pick relatively early tonight here in the second round. 38 overall is where that selection is, along with number 54. We'll hit on that a little bit more here in a bit. We talked about this yesterday, James, the old luxury tax. And the NBA is confusing as hell when it comes to roster construction.
Contracts.
Bird writes this, second apron that. Could my mom use another apron for Mother's Day? Every time I hear the apron, that's all I even think about.
I agree with you, brother.
It's confusing as hell. And so Scott Agnes will join us at 8:30. I texted him yesterday again, hey, can you mind educating us a little bit more? But, also wanted to do a little bit of homework because I think a misnomer about the luxury taxes, it's purely not just, hey, if you go over the soft cap of the NBA, now $1 becomes $1.25. That's the basic premise of it.
Right.
But there's some other restrictions that come with it. For example here, if you go into the first apron, so if you cross into the tax and you're in kind of that first wave, some of the things you can't do. You can't acquire a player through a sign and trade. You can't sign a player waived during the season who is making more than the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. Again, some of that is confusing.
What does that mean?
I want to say the taxpayer mid-level exception for the Pacers, I believe, is $14 million for this year. Like, that's a notable number. I mean, a player at $14 million in the NBA, that's a player in your rotation.
Yeah, that's a good player.
And if you get into that first apron, you can't sign a player using that. So those are some of the restrictions. If you go into the second apron, a lot of that comes into it. You cannot send cash as part of a trade. I bring that up because that's the exact trade the Pacers did yesterday. They sent a future second-round pick. You mentioned 2030 second-round pick earlier, and they also sent some cash to the San Antonio Spurs to get the 38th pick. So
I always picture them just like, all right, here's a big bag of money.
Yeah.
Like, wire transfers are boring.
We'll have one of our interns drive the Brinks truck down to San Antonio, and your people meet our people. Like, it's Kevin Bowen buying the Plot Rickon shirt at whatever that was.
How about this, by the way?
Parlor coffee shop.
Speaking of paying up, one of my buddies, he made a bet with one of his friends on the job, and he posted it on his Facebook, where he bet the Thunder to win in 7 or whatever, or the Pacers. And he said the guy on his job was a huge Halliburton fan. He was upset that they lost, and the fashion in which they lost, Halliburton tears his Achilles, yada, yada, yada. So he pays my friend $200 in quarters. And so when he came to work, he had a big box on his desk that was like taped together, and it was seriously $200 in quarters. So how petty is that?
The best part would be if he would have dumped all the quarters, so it's not just easily disposable back into the old bank.
I think he would have done that had it not been at the job, but yes, that would have been very petty.
Picture him at a local marsh all of a sudden getting all these quarters out of the machine. So those are some of the penalties that come with being into the tax. And again, I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, I don't give two you-know-whats. Herb Simon, spend it.
Right.
But if you're Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan and these guys, you have to consider some of this stuff because this has been a big avenue for how they have wheeled and dealed and created this sort of team. For example, Miles Turner, there's a thought of you give him that contract and at some point, there's a sign and trade down the road with him. Well, if you get in the second apron, doing those things can no longer happen. Right. So I think we all need to be further educated on it because it is a new time in the NBA where you do have these penalties that are not just simply, hey, if you go over the luxury tax or into it, then all of a sudden $1 becomes $1.50.
Yeah, and I think the overall justification for why these rules are even implemented in the last CBA was because it creates more parity in the NBA. We've seen that, especially over the last few years. I believe last 7 years, 7 different champions. It becomes very much harder to run it back and try to win it again as a repeat champion in today's NBA than perhaps it ever was before. So there is some value in that, I think, from a parity standpoint, from the NBA trying to become more like the NFL, where you want to give every team a decent chance to get better or contend quickly, those types of things. But yeah, overall, man, it's just so much jargon when it comes to NBA dialogue that oftentimes I'm thinking to myself, all right, am I still on the Pacers beat full time or can I just read Tony East stuff? or can I read Dustin DePierre? Or can I read Scott Agnes to better understand what the heck is going on? Because I had to read a Tony East piece yesterday to understand, okay, what does this trade for the number 38 pick really mean? And in theory, in a nutshell, it just allows you to perhaps, because it's high enough, you can maybe get a borderline first round pick talent.
Like Furphy last year.
Yes, without having to pay them first round pick money and keep yourself flexible from a financial standpoint.
Now, by all accounts, if you look at mock drafts or best available players, last night's round 1 went pretty status quo.
Yep.
As we sat here last year on day 2, you had not only Furphy, but remember Kyle Filipowski. The weird girlfriend stuff. Remember all that drama last year with him?
I do remember
that. Does his family hate? I shouldn't laugh. Does his family hate him? That was literally a discussion. And he went to the Jazz relatively early on day 2. As I sit here right now at 38, I think the obvious thing is just take best player available. It's a second round. You're if you can strike. It's a miracle you got Andrew Nembhard at 31.
Right.
It's a miracle a decade ago you got Lance Stevenson at 40. For every Lance Stevenson at 40, there's Tristan Newton last year at whatever pick he was, right around the same range, and Tristan Newton didn't even make it to day 1 of camp or day 1 of the season, I'm pretty sure. But there are actually a couple names that I am intrigued by, and I guess let me just throw this out there. If you had to slot a position here, would you rather see the Pacers take a point guard tonight or a center?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I might go center because what are your centers beyond re-signing Miles Turner? James Wiseman coming off the Achilles. Isaiah Jackson
and he's
coming
in
off
Toronto,
the Achilles.
Wiseman.
Oh, he got picked up?
Yeah, I think right at the deadline. Wasn't that like the weird deal? It's again, this is another confusing NBA element. Didn't the Pacers move him to the Raptors for some reason?
Let's see. They say he last played for the Indiana Pacers.
Well, he hasn't played because he's recovering.
No, I mean that was his last.
Could have sworn he's now under Raptors control, which sounds like the greatest Max Bowen story ever.
Yeah, see, I'm not seeing that. And the reason why I say that is because remember when Rick Carlisle told us that he's still rehabbing with the Pacers, technically?
I don't know February 7th, James Wiseman joins the Raptors and trade with the Pacers.
See, now I'm confused. Okay, so you're finishing your rehab.
Raptors receive James Wiseman and cash considerations. The Pacers receive a 2026 second-round pick. Just further confusion from the NBA. But to your point, Wiseman, gone, Achilles. Isaiah Jackson coming off the Achilles, he's a free agent.
Yep.
And then you obviously have the Turner situation. So I think you could debate center point guard. Ironically, a couple guys who used to play at Creighton, I always really liked Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton. For those that watch Creighton over the past few years, great rim protector, very productive big man. And I think as his time moved along at Creighton, the ability to stretch the floor showed a little bit there. That would obviously be something you would want for him to expand on. I think he is a notable name. I know and I know this sounds weird to say, but watching Stanford play Notre Dame in the ACC this year, Maxi Reynal, if I'm saying that right, from France, he was a pretty good big dude for Stanford as well. He's still on the board. Very good rebounder. Probably more of a shooter, not the rim protector of a Kalkbrenner, but I think more from a shooting standpoint. Those are a couple centers. And I know this sounds very just sappy and high schooly or collegey, but Andrew Nembhard's little brother is on the board. Ryan Nembhard, former Creighton point guard, played at Gonzaga. Great assist man. Think much more natural point guard than his brother. Much shorter than his brother.
6 foot.
Think of him as more of a pure point guard. So those are some names out there that are still on the board. You do have Janai Broom from Auburn still on the board as well.
Yeah, and that always doesn't freak me out, but it reminds me of what the NBA values, because Janai Broom was player of the year candidate and one of the best players in college basketball, but he's an older player, maybe not as athletic.
And a horrific shooter.
Yes. And so in the NBA, every guy can shoot in today's NBA. I mean, if you look at highlights, I was watching highlights from the 04 playoffs or the 04 finals. It might have been the Lakers and the Pistons, and the spacing is absurd. There is none. You got two guys on the floor who can't shoot at all times during that era, and now every player can, shoot, pass, dribble to some degree when they're out there. Even Miles Turner, I know he struggled in the finals, but he is the future of the center position to a certain extent, with the ability to shoot the ball and create a shot off the dribble if he has to every now and then.
I could be talked into point guard or center, to go back to that question for tonight.
So which way you leaning, brother? I'm going center.
Yeah, I think I'd go.
I want to see a sky hook.
I think I would. I think I would go center. Point guard, though. Hear me out. First off, I think it's always important to have a third point guard.
That's true.
It's just kind of like a third quarterback. And the McConnell thing, it ain't gonna last forever.
He's 33.
He does make a lot of money too. And I know this is not the reality a lot of people want to live in, but when Tyrese does return in 2026, 2027, are you in a numbers, at that point it's, okay, is Mathurin gone? Is he extended? What exactly does that look like for him? Rick Carlisle's mentioned, hey, TJ McConnell, we want him to retire here. That was the thought with that last contract. Is there a passing of the torch at that point to where, when Tyrese returns, Andrew Nembhard in the starting lineup, do you view that third point guard as someone that would ascend then to the backup role? So I would say center is more barren right now.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go center, but at the same time, I don't want to ignore point guard either. I mean, could you imagine if McConnell or Nembhard got hurt?
Oh, Lord.
You
find some wood to knock on.
I mean, Nembhard missed how much time last year? Didn't he miss a month?
Yeah, he did miss significant time last year.
So, that's just something that probably, I don't know. Is it easier to find a center? I guess maybe. I mean, this year the Pacers seemingly threw a dart at the board and a million centers. And finally, what was the one center they had who was really tall?
It was something Moses
Brown.
Yes. And I told you he looked like a redwood.
Yeah, he
When
was,
I walked past this man in the locker room, I was like, brother, you can reach up and handshake God. That was unbelievable.
The only dude I've seen bigger is that guy on the Colts right now who's 6'10" and 330 pounds. Jack Wilson?
Yes.
That dude.
And by the way, he looks like a bodybuilder. He is ripped.
He literally looks like a giant.
Yeah. I don't understand how, we're the same species sometimes. A real quick update here. Thank you to the YouTube chat for your question, KB, on James Wiseman. He is a free agent. He got released or cut or waived by the Raptors.
There you go. Okay.
Would he want to come back? Is he healthy? Those types of things are conversations.
And again, do you want the torn Achilles centers back? That's the question.
I don't know if I do.
you have to ask. So, because, you're approaching right at 12 months, obviously, the start of the season. Both those guys got hurt, very early last season. So, just some things to keep an eye on. Again, right now, the Pacers 38-54 here coming up in round 2. Mark, did the Bulls make a pick last night? Did they get a foreigner?
Yes. Noah Essengay, I think is how you pronounce it.
Was that the
an 18-year-old from France?
I think that might have been the first foreigner selected.
You might be right.
Wait, where was that? Do you know what number pick
12.
that was?
12.
Yeah, I mean, did we go 11 picks without a foreign-born player? That's got to be a long time.
Especially with how the last few years have gone. I mean, Wemby was literally number 1 a couple years ago.
The 1 year, didn't we have like 3 French dudes in the top 10?
Yeah. Because I think it was Ricochet. You see his last name?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Well, we had...
Are they a sneaky team next year, by the way?
The Wizards?
The Hawks.
Oh, the Hawks.
Ricochet. Wasn't he kind of good?
Yeah. He ended up being, like, okay. I don't know if he would be a star, but he was pretty good.
Like, in the East, somebody's got to do something. And the Hawks have Trae Young. For those that haven't watched, Jalen Johnson got hurt last year from Duke. When healthy, very good young player.
Yes.
Baller. Dyson Daniels.
All NBA defense.
Ricochet. Yeah. They just traded for Porzingis. I don't know. Maybe banking on Porzingis.
If he's healthy, though, the spacing he would give them would be very beneficial.
Like, somebody out of the East has got to be kind of a sleeper that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I would think so, just because of the injuries to the Pacers and the Celtics. And, the Knicks still have to get a coach. So, we'll see.
By the way, there's a lot of people that from not from America that went in the NBA draft last night.
Oh, the guy from Duke. I know one of the Duke players.
Oh, sorry. I meant like people that are playing overseas. I guess I should have been a little bit more clear on that.
It's like we had guys from Bahamas, South Sudan.
Yeah. I thought the Malawach emotion was really cool to see. Just I thought ESPN again, the ESPN telecast. I thought it was horrific, but I thought they did a pretty nice job on the Malawach.
May I ask what you thought was horrific? Because I did not hear this.
Yeah, I just think the cohesion of Billis, Perkins, and Andre Carter was just struggling. Honestly, I probably wanted to hear more from Carter. Perkins, I thought, brought nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
you could say that about his finals coverage as well.
Yeah, it just...
Oh, can I finally say this now? So, remember when I told you all I took exception to him saying Halliburton was scared in Game 5 when he was playing through the calf injury and all that? He rips his Achilles. Was he scared? No, he wasn't scared. It's like, that's why I get annoyed when I hear those types of things said from people, because I'm like, you're an athlete. You should know, man. Like, the guy literally tore his Achilles for this franchise, and now all you got to say is, oh, well, you know what? He'd do it again. He's a tough guy. Like, no, we knew that before. Come on, man. But I digress. Let's continue.
I would really get my heart rate going at a very unhealthy level.
I just had to get that off my chest. He's not scared, man.
If I went into that
injured.
rabbit hole, if I went into the Skip Bayless rabbit hole, all of that.
Speaking of real quick, though, moments that you talked about, you love the emotion, VJ Edgecombe.
Mm-hmm. He went 3 to Philly.
Yes. And Buddy Hield, former Pacer, was there to support him as a fellow Bahamas native. He was saying, we came from nothing. He said, I grew up on a generator for 7 years. And I was like, wow. And that kid is explosive. It's all get out. So if he's able to get a jump shot together, he will be a scary, scary
And again,
NBA
what
player.
the hell is Philly next year?
Well, if they're healthy, which is always what you say with Philly, right?
Can you imagine Joel Embiid playing 100 games in NBA season like the Pacers and Thunder just did?
I honestly think that
there's a better chance I walk on the moon tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that he will never be eligible for an All-NBA team again because of the 65-game rule or whatever. He's not playing 65 games in any season if you want to keep him healthy, if he's even healthy.
Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor here in a few. Colts training camp schedule going to be announced later today. James Boyd, for our audience that might have missed it earlier, the Fever yesterday released Dewana Bonner, a major free agent signing by the franchise. I found it a little odd that, like, in the press release to announce the move, she had a quote in there, which you don't typically see the quote in there. I guess I should probably read that quote. For those that missed it, typically you don't see, hey, we're cutting you, but here's a quote from you on your way out. But from Dewana Bonner, I want to sincerely thank the Indiana Fever for the opportunity to be part of the franchise. Despite our shared goals and excitement heading into the season, I felt the fit did not work out, and I appreciate the organization's willingness to grant my request to move on, particularly at this point in my career. I wish the Fever great success as they continue to build around this dynamic group of young players. Your thoughts on DeWanna Bonner and the Mark Dykton queuing up the audio of Rick Carlisle describing Tristan Thompson of, it was fun while it lasted.
It was not fun while it lasted. I would argue that Tristan Thompson's tenure with the Pacers is a little bit more fruitful than what DeWanna Bonner gave the Fever. It's a unique situation, and for those who are like, man, why did they just waiver? How come they didn't try to force a trade? Two things. One, her contract was pretty expensive, even though it was non-protected. So you're looking at teams to take on a lot of salary if you try to trade her and not waiver. And then two, if she's only saying I want to go to these teams, then no other teams are going to trade for her. So in theory, other teams had cap space for her, but why would you trade for a player that doesn't want to be there? And so it became inevitable at that point that you're probably going to waive her. And then also knowing your relationship with Ari McDonald, who they replaced her with, she played very well in a hardship contract earlier this season. She's waiting in the wings, so you just make the move now and kind of cut ties. But it is a very big swing and miss from the front office, from the team itself, to try to build a championship contender. And she was supposed to be a big part of that coming into this season. Now, I would love to hear more from her whenever she does join a new team, assuming she joins a new team this season, because, the journalist in me is like, I want to be able to put your feet to the fire and ask you real questions. Why didn't it work out? What conversations did you have? When did it become untenable? All of those things, because you're a future Hall of Famer who essentially, from the outside looking in, you look like you quit on your team. That's a bad look.
I actually have a different Rick Carlisle quote that I think of when I think of DeWanna Bonner's tenure with the Indiana Fever.
It was time to, get the out of there.
That was a fun day.
Was that when I asked him about where he goes when he gets ejected?
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
what do you do when you get ejected, Coach? That was his response. I had to jump at the dump button.
He entertained that question decently well. We should go back and splice together all of the non-basketball Carlisle questions.
Oh, Lord.
I'd have to do some editing.
Can that be a summer project?
Sure.
I feel like, I don't know, if we podcasted that, people might actually enjoy that.
That's funny.
Yeah, I guess last thing on Bonner before we get to Matt Taylor, I don't even know how to compare it to anything else I've seen in sports. I mean, like a major free agent acquisition, and is quitting okay to say? Quitting on the team a month into it?
That's what it looks like.
I mean, that is jarring. Like, I'm trying to picture this from a Colts, if Chris Ballard all of a sudden made some big free agent signing, you imagine the uproar from fans? Oh, yeah, the player's been benched, A. Bonner was benched for Lexi Hall, and then, because she wasn't good, and then B, just quits. And it's not like you traded her and got something in return. You just waived her.
Right.
In a very significant contract. So, quite the drama off the floor. Fever back in action tonight, 7 o'clock right here. Our airwaves. Eddie Garrison will have your pregame coverage at 6:45. All right, coming up, Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, joins us. Training camp schedule will be announced later today for the Colts. It's Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, and Mark Dykton.
It was time to, get the out of there.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
8 o'clock hour on, I think, what is supposed to be a slightly less steamy Thursday. By no means are we into, 82-degree weather, but at least my glasses didn't fog up this morning walking to the car, so I take that as a step in the right direction. Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, going to join us here in a few. Colts training camp schedule supposed to be announced later today. Scott Agnes at 8:30. We tried to do some luxury tax education in our previous segment. We'll rely on Scott for a little bit more of that. And if you missed it yesterday, the Pacers actually will pick earlier tonight in round 2. 38, well, I guess they'll pick early and late, at least on paper right now. 38 and 54. Those are their selections here coming up tonight starting at 8 o'clock.
I'm curious to see just how the rest of the board shakes out before that 8th pick of the second round. Mainly because, okay, does that dictate, Kevin, whether you lean towards center or guard?
Yeah, someone was saying like Charlotte, I think, has back-to-back picks right before them. Charlotte, they traded Mark Williams last night, right? Mark Williams went to Phoenix.
Yep.
Is that right? Could they be in the center debate or center pool? So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline right now. He is the voice of the Colts, and he's a man that I think has been relatively excited about how our Red Legs have done. Not yesterday, but here in the month of June. He is Matt Taylor. Mate, I hate to bother you on June 26th, but good morning to you.
Good morning, boys. You can bother me anytime. What's going on?
We are great. Do we have a training camp schedule?
I think you're going to get one very, very soon. If not, by the end of today or maybe tomorrow. I think by the end of this week, I think we're going to have some, major details on training camp. We know it's going to start on July, what's Shane say, July 23rd. That's going to be the first day of practice. Report day is going to be a little bit earlier than that in that week. We know there's going to be a joint practice with the Green Bay Packers on August the 14th. And there's also going to be another joint practice on the road in Baltimore ahead of that preseason game against the Ravens. Unfortunately, obviously, that's not going to be a Grand Park adventure, if you will, but that's going to be probably August 5th ahead of that August 7th first preseason game against the Ravens. But, yeah, I would expect a full kind of breakdown hopefully by the end of this week.
Do we know if there will be any night practices, or should fans expect mostly mornings again?
No, I think you're going to see some cool stuff. I think you're going to see some marquee weekend dates. The Colts did a night practice, or sort of like a twilight practice. I don't know if you would technically call it a night practice in the past, but they did like that Saturday, late afternoon into the Indiana sunset twilight period. I would fully expect those.
Sounds like a
again,
Mellencamp song.
That's what I'm saying. You got like Small Town and, Paper and Fire in the background for John Mellencamp. But, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I think you're going to see some really cool things in terms of, theme days, marketing initiatives around these practices. And, you could see some lights. Let's just put it that way, right? I think it's going to be really, really cool for training camp this year.
Interesting.
I just hope we don't see any more monsoons. That was the coldest I've ever been in my life last summer when it rained that one day at camp. Do you remember that, Maytay? That was rough stuff, brother.
It's a typical, Indiana summer, James. It's, just wait 15 minutes and here comes the sun again. Then you've got a rainbow after the rain. It's just, yeah, unfortunately, that's what we have to deal with in the summertime here in central Indiana. But, no question about it. It's going to be hot, but I think it's going to be worth it to come out and see the Colts in late July and August.
So, I actually contemplated driving home shirtless that day because I was so cold from the shirt that I was wearing. It was wet. I did not. I made it home safely, but
that's what we need more of. We need more James Boyd shirtless. Okay, so when does the calendar come out?
I don't know. Kevin Bowen's been a bad influence on me here on the show, so maybe I'll get a little shirtless for you guys here soon. But one guy who I think is going to be very important to this team on a more serious note going forward is Tyler Warren. What were your first impressions of him and what we could see throughout training camp? Because from my perspective, that dude looked as good as advertised early on in the spring.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I completely agree. Watching him the first thing that crept into my mind when I saw him out there wearing a Colts, helmet, and you got the hair flowing out of the back, it's like this guy could have success in 2025. He could also have success in 1975, right? He's just like a throwback player. He could kind of like, cross all these different generations because of how good he is and all the things that he can do, and just really excited. You guys saw it. The Colts working him in the backfield with the Wildcat. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. And that just goes back to what Jim Bob Cooter said in the offseason. It's like, I've never had so many like cut up tape on one player at tight end, because normally you've got, the pass catching cut ups, you've got the blocking cut ups, but with him, you've got for him throwing the ball and running the ball and lining up in all these different spots. So, from that standpoint, it's going to be really, really interesting and exciting. But, I heard you guys talking about this a little bit earlier, maybe it was yesterday or at, some other point, previously in the spring. I think it's going to be a big time numbers crunch at tight end, just because of how good I think Warren's going to be, and also how much playing time I think he's going to have. And they drafted him for the big reason to just, put him out there. And because of everything that he can do, he's not going to tip his hand to the defense, run or pass. So you want him out there as often as possible, and I think he can handle it. But I just think you're deep from other positions on the team. They're never going to skimp at O-line and D-line. Maybe they don't skimp at receiver this year. Maybe they keep 6 guys there. Maybe they keep 6 cornerbacks because of how deep you are at that position in the secondary. So I think tight end might kind of feel that numbers crunch because of the other positions, and also how good Tyler Warren's going to be, I think, right away. But, I think on the low end, for me, you look at all the tight ends that have been drafted in the first round the last, couple of decades, there's not a ton of guys that are just huge numbers right away. There's only been, I think, 6 or 7 tight ends drafted in the first round since 2000 that have gone over 500 yards. But if you look at those expectations for Tyler Warren, I don't know how you guys feel, but to me, that's sort of like on the low end. And if you do the math, that's only like right around 30 receiving yards per game to get over 500 yards. That seems very doable. I think he's going to get 5 or 6 targets a game. I think more importantly, he's going to come up with some huge clutch catches throughout the course of a game. A big third down conversion, or a red zone catch, or a touchdown catch. So maybe it's not necessarily as much about the receiving yards as it is about the timeliness of the catches. But again, I think 500 yards is very doable for Tyler Warren because of how much he's going to play, and just, how good I think he's going to be right away as a rookie, having that impact.
And honestly, the short yardage stuff, I think, will be pretty creative with him as well. Obviously, Penn State did that with great success, and I think the Colts will tap into that as well. It's the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Mate, your biggest non-quarterback training camp storyline is what?
Well, I think I'm going to get out the blimp, and I'm going to go real big picture. To me, I've got 2 answers, but the first one is just, again, collectively as a team, like how serious is this team early on in training camp? Or maybe better said is how big of a chip is does this team have on its shoulder at the beginning of training camp, knowing that, hey, it's time to go, right? You missed the playoffs 4 straight years, and every team in the AFC South has won it at least once, since 2014 when the Colts last won the division. Right? I just want to see like how, for lack of a better term, like serious and PO this team is, and how driven it is, and how motivated it is right away with some of the leaders that they have on this team coming back, like Zaire and Buck and Grover and Quentin Nelson and Jonathan Taylor. So that's the biggest one for me. And then obviously outside of quarterback, to me, you've got O-line, you've got some defensive line rotation battles up for grabs as well. But for me, and this is going to sound nerdy, but outside of quarterback, the biggest positional battle that I'm going to be watching and monitoring is kicker, just because I think it's that important. And, on the O-line, I think you're going to, whether you go Tanner Bortolini or Danny Pinter, I think you're going to be in good shape there. I believe in both of those guys, and I think they're going to turn into even better players as they grow and get more experience, especially in the case of Bortolini, who's the younger guy. So I feel good there. I feel really good about Matt Gonzalez taking over at right guard. I think he can handle that, having the entire offseason to get acclimated to that position, going from tackle to guard. But to me, it's just kicker is so important. You know, I mean, if you look at the Colts are sort of a microcosm of the NFL, right? Where all these games come down the last 4 minutes, and the Colts last year, they didn't make a ton of long clutch field goals. That was sort of the bugaboo for Matt Gay. I mean, obviously he's got that in his resume, but last year obviously just a little bit of a struggle there. But, the Colts, if you look at the last 2 years, nearly 2/3 of the Colts games have been decided by one score. That just screams kicker to me. And the resumes for Spencer Schrader and Maddox Trujillo, two young guys with tremendous legs, are very thin, but there's a lot of faith and a lot of confidence in those guys. And I just think it's really important in this league to be able to knock down long clutch field goals at the end of halves and at the end of games. And those are two young guys that are capable, but we just haven't seen a whole lot of them. Obviously, Spencer Schrader's only made 5 field goals last year as a rookie. Maddox is a rookie this year, has never played in even a preseason game. So I'm really going to be fascinated to see how that plays out, because I think it's really important to the success of an NFL team, especially an NFL team like the Colts that plays in a lot of close games, that are trying to get the edge on some of these playoff teams with tiebreakers and things like that, as it relates to playoff jockeying in for playoff positioning towards the end of the season.
Oh, Matt Taylor, man after my own heart. I nerded out about this as well. 5 of Indy's 8 wins last year were by 3 points or less, and then 3 of their 9 losses were by 3 points or less as well. So, yes, kicking is important. The last one I have for you, Mayte, we saw the ownership transition to the daughters. Carly Ursay-Gordon, I believe, will take more of the football reins when it comes to the 3 daughters and their new ownership positions. What have been your impressions of her throughout the years and her readiness for the new role?
Yeah, just really impressed by her, just the willingness and the passion to, as she said in that press conference a few weeks back, just wanting to understand the game better and, taking the bull by the horns and wearing the headset on the sidelines. And I thought Jim, throughout the course of the last couple of decades, as those as the family grew up in the game of football and as they got older, I thought he did a really good job of, ripping the curtain back and having them be involved in some of these meetings and these conversations and these interviews, and just, what it's like to be part of the franchise from every different angle. And I think they're ready for it because of Jim's leadership there and his foresight, his stewardship of the franchise. Wanting the daughters to see everything that goes into running an NFL team, not only from a football operation standpoint, but front office as well. I mean, you guys know, to run an NFL team, it's football, but it's also, community relations, it's a nonprofit, it's a production agency, it's corporate sales and sponsorship. There's just it's like working nowhere else really in the normal world, I guess. So they're ready for it. And Carly is going to obviously oversee most of the football operations side of things, but I think she's ready. And also, too, what I kind of got goosebumps from her comments the other day was, we're not here to just, compete and make the playoffs and, just hang around. We want to have urgency, and we want to get back to being the best. And if we're going to win games and do all this work, excuse me, we want to be the best at it. And she's driven just like her dad and is really competitive and just has that passion and fire. And so, it's early on, obviously, Jim's passing was in late May. So right now it's kind of too early to tell just how that dynamic is going to work. Maybe ask me in a year and we'll know much more and have a little more detail. But I do know one thing is that she's ready to go and she's able to make those football decisions, and she wants to win for this city and for this franchise, and she knows what she wants to do to get this fan base back on board to the expectations that it had a couple of decades prior to this.
Is there any bigger tease in all of sports than the June Cincinnati Reds on an annual basis?
Yeah, here we go. Right. I mean, just sort of like this major bump up before the 4th of July. We've seen that primarily 2 years ago, Kevin.
Give me your number. I'll
ball.
text you later. I promise I will.
Yeah, exactly. So it's right now we're like in this sweetheart phase in high school where, I'll see you over the summer and then we'll hang out a couple of times and get back together. And after Labor Day, when school gets back together, I just, my expectations for this red season was just kind of hang around, have a good summer, be 5 or 6 games over 500. And then hopefully once you get to, mid-August to, early September, you can make a push. I just don't know if they have enough outfield bats for it. Injuries are always a factor, but yeah, I guess it's a better situation to be in than, 6 games under, which is where they were a couple of weeks ago. So they're playing better ball, 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, pretty good. So I'm remaining cautiously optimistic about just kind of hanging around for the summer.
Don't look now, but here come the Red Legs.
There you go.
Look at that. Look at that. Say that on September 30th when they're all of a sudden celebrating the pennant. Thank you, Mark Dykton, for that. Matt Taylor, always great to hear your voice. We'll await the Colts training camp schedule. And, boy, I guess I'm looking forward to seeing you on July 22nd. But I hope it doesn't come sooner than that.
Well, I always enjoy seeing you, no matter the phase or the atmosphere. So I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, this is sort of when it's coming, right? This is when Colts football is just around the corner. You kind of change your mindset a little bit. And also, too, when the training camp schedule comes out, again, hopefully at the end of this week, I don't know about you guys, but you start to do a little bit like adulting, like, hey, I got to get my oil changed. I got to go to the dentist, right? Because I don't have time for this stuff for the next 6 months.
I was at the dentist yesterday. Trust me, this is the time of year to get it all done from that standpoint. Have a great summer with the fam, man.
I appreciate you guys. You guys, too.
That is Matt Taylor right there, voice of the Colts on the Payless Liquors hotline.
That is a great person right there.
Always enjoy the combos. He's on the mic quite often there at Grand Park, alerting fans of exactly what is coming up from a practice standpoint. So hopefully we'll get a training camp schedule either today or tomorrow, it sounds like, and we will keep you posted on that front. Mark Dykton, let's check it out.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, we'll get more into the why. Why did the Pacers trade for another second-round pick yesterday? We'll get into that coming up with Scott Agnes here in about 10 minutes. But James Boyd, fill in our audience for those that missed it yesterday. The Pacers did make a move before the draft started.
Yes, they traded a future second-round pick in the year 2030. I don't know what year Max Bone will be in school by then. But it is quite a ways away.
Still be talking about dinosaurs.
Yeah, and cash to the Spurs for the number 38 pick in tonight's draft. So they now have 2 second-round picks, number 38 and number 54.
8 o'clock tonight will be round 2. I would say relatively quiet for round 1 of the draft. I'll put each of you, I guess, Mark, you didn't even watch it, so I don't know. James, any grand takeaway from what we witnessed last night in the NBA draft?
Not necessarily. I guess the Ace Bailey thing was interesting to me just because of his unique I'm not working out for anybody approach before the draft, and now he ends up in Utah. So we'll see what that means for his future. And it sounds like he wanted to go somewhere where he can get some shots up. So do they have shots for him in Utah?
I thought the emotion, VJ Edgecombe, Malawat's the big dude from Duke. Both of those were pretty cool moments. Derek Queen went 13 to the Pelicans. The Pelicans actually got up there with help from the Pacers first-round pick that they had traded for last week. Walter Clayton Jr. also to the Jazz. The Jazz get a couple notable guys from a college standpoint in Ace Bailey, Walter Clayton Jr. And then in the 20s, some other names I think people will recognize. You got the Jessic Kovacic, or however the hell you say his name. They're calling him KJ from Illinois. That guard there went to Miami at 20. Danny Wolf from Michigan went to the Brooklyn Nets, one of their 5 first-round picks at 27. And former Indiana commit Liam McNeely. I believe a bit of a fall for old Liam there. Number 29 to Charlotte. Charlotte went with Con Knippel and Liam McNeely. How about all those Knippel brothers?
Yeah, I was like, man, that's a big family. I'm glad you made it to the NBA. That's a lot of mouths to feed.
Mark, you weren't watching. You got to look up this family of brothers and their names.
Mm-hmm.
Was it all starts with like K's, I believe?
Cash and what was one of them? Kinger?
Cash is a good name if you're going to be playing basketball.
Isn't one of Ballard's kids' name Cash?
Yes, I believe that is the Westfield
Ballard
offensive lineman.
Boy, if you're named Cash, you better be a hell of an athlete, right?
Yeah, I feel like Cash is a good name for basketball, especially if you're a shooter.
I kind of like it for a middle linebacker. Little cowboy, neck roll there.
Yeah.
There are expectations if your name is Cash.
Oh,
there has to be, right?
Through the roof, right?
Can't be cleaning toilets.
Hell no. 2025 Fever back at home coming up tonight. It's the LA Sparks, 11-point favorite over Sparks team that has not been good as of late, and they've been blown off the floor quite often. James Boyd, Caitlin Clark, that storyline. Pretty big right now. She is struggling with the jumper. She's struggling with the turnovers. Back-to-back games coming up here tonight and tomorrow in Dallas. We'll see if she can get things back on track.
Great players bounce back, and she certainly needs to play better than she has over the last 3 games.
So I'm trying to think, was it just the Liberty game, the first game back, she's played well since the return, or was there another game in there? She was really bad on the West Coast trip.
That is the one that comes to mind for me.
I feel like they had another home game in there, but I could have been wrong on that. Again, 1 of 23 from 3 on this West Coast trip. And then 22 turnovers as well.
Yeah, just not good.
Yeah, she was good in that Connecticut game at home, but that West Coast trip, maybe just chalk it up to that. I don't know. Maybe the old Vegas flu action there. Who knows? Fever Sparks coming up tonight at 7. Major League Baseball from yesterday. Cubs all over the Cardinals. Reds lose to the Yankees. We'll get some day baseball coming up. Travel. We had some day baseball yesterday. We'll get some day baseball coming up as well. White Sox over the D-backs. Guardians over the Blue Jays. Brewers beat the Pirates. Indianapolis Indians 7-5 losers to Omaha yesterday. We got dinosaur action over there at Victory Field coming up Saturday and Sunday. Mark, have you ever been to the dinosaur games?
I don't think so. I don't think we have. No.
So am I just picturing Stegosauruses climbing up in the upper deck and Velociraptors outside of Section 104?
Usually there's
camping in the outfield or
think
T-Rexes.
In the past there have been robotics dinosaurs in the outfield, and then they'll do the T-Rex race where those inflatable
in the
costumes.
Picnic area, not playing left field.
Right. And then they'll do the inflatable T-Rex costumes. They'll do a race and everything like that. So I'm sure they'll get their dinosaur swerve on. So I'll be out there Sunday, I believe, with a beer bat in hand.
As we would not expect anything less from you, Mark Dighton.
Thank you.
All right, coming up on the other side, Scott Agnes informing us on exactly what the Pacers did yesterday, why they did it, what would bringing back Miles Turner cost the Pacers, if anything, from a player standpoint. A little luxury tax education. We'll do that next. Scott Agnes.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We got a lot to get to with our next guest. We know day 2 of the NBA draft coming up tonight. Currently, the Pacers 38 and 54, so they'll pick early and a little bit later if they keep those picks. Coming up tonight, quite a bit of news with the Indiana Fever to touch on as well. We've got a Miles Turner free agency that will get some clarity here in a few days. So Scott Agnes from Fieldhouse Files, our perfect guest to have on, and would like a little education on the luxury tax if you wouldn't mind. But Scott, I actually want to begin here. You're such a great scene observer. You were in the building Sunday, Game 7. Whether it was the tie injury, whether it was simply just what you observed post-game, could you kind of take us a little bit behind the curtain on what that was like being there and witnessing certainly a night that no one will forget, really?
Yeah, first of all, I will say the level of number of people downtown and excitement for the game and such was astronomically higher than it was for the other games that we were there. You could really feel the finals vibe and atmosphere for this Game 7, maybe because it was a weekend game or whatever. But then you get to the injury, and much like when Halliburton made that shot with 0.3 seconds left in Game 1, it silenced the place. And same thing with the injury. It was just like everybody was in shock. What happened? Is everybody okay? And then I give fans a lot of credit. Big round of applause for him as he walked off the court as well. And then just throughout the game and throughout the series, they were just incredibly loud. So that was huge. But then post-game, one thing that was interesting was they added this this curtain, let's call it, to divide up the hallway to block anyone from seeing the key team personnel and other stuff on their way out of the arena, for example. So that kept us from certain views, I will say, KB. But back in one of the areas by the team locker room is where the Tyrese Halliburton, where he was standing on the crutches and hugging everyone on his way out. I think one of the most visual things was as we were leaving the media interview room after that, you turned down and there were just individuals just standing in the hallway watching, for example, like Tim McConnell and his entire family, just waiting on the boys. A couple of agents hanging out there, a couple of reporters waiting for Tyrese to leave. So it was just such an emotional night, people trying to figure out how to act, how to feel, because that one stung for an important moment like it was, and now what happens to Tyrese moving forward.
Scott, obviously the NBA world does not stop for anybody. It's going to keep moving, and so what do you view as the next steps, not draft-related, regarding the Pacers, their future, and how does Tyrese's injury perhaps change what they might do next?
Yeah, so for the Pacers, it's just going to come down to getting their centers and figuring out what they do at that direction, right? Because you got to re-sign Miles. I think you even you probably bring back another one like Isaiah Jackson. It makes a lot of sense to me. We haven't gotten an update on his rehab and how he's looking and such. But as you saw, even when he was here for Game 6, he was out there shooting and moving around and doing things like he was part of the group again, which had to be good physically and mentally for him. But I'd like the move that the Pacers did to get the pick 38 in the draft here upcoming. Clearly there's somebody they like and have been targeting and can get on a great value contract. But all indications are you're just going to run it back and try to do the best you can with this current group and make do with what it is, because you got everybody under contract just about. There's severe cap limitations to what you can even do. And so I think we'll mostly see the same group next season.
Scott's work is at Fieldhouse Files. That's where you can find it. And he is with us here on this Thursday morning, as he is pretty much every Thursday. Scott, it's not often that I text a guest that we're having on the next day, but I wanted to give you a heads up. And, frankly, it's a topic that I feel like I need more education on. And we talked a little bit about in the 7:30 hour, the luxury tax. And, from a dollars and cents standpoint, I think people understand if you go over the soft cap, then there's a penalty of $1.25 for every dollar moving forward. That's, I think, relatively easy to understand from a financial sense, but there's also some restrictions on like how you can build moving forward. We hit on a couple of those earlier of like, at some point sign and trades are no longer possible for you. At some point, you can't send cash in a trade, which is something the Pacers did yesterday in acquiring the 38th pick. So I guess I'll leave it pretty open-ended, but like, how can you, I guess, further educate us and mainly our audience on what the luxury tax is and what the Pacers could about to be entering?
Teach us.
Amen.
Well, the luxury tax in particular, you pretty much nailed it. It's basically saying if you go into a threshold here afterwards, well above everything else, not only do you pay an additional dollar fee per dollar in year one, after that is where it gets really dangerous, which is why I always hesitate of when you want to start your clock, let's say. If the Pacers went into the luxury tax threshold this upcoming season for the first time in over 20 years, it's not horrible the first year. The challenge then, though, KB, becomes the repeater tax where, it multiplies even more. So maybe you're paying 3x for every additional dollar the second year. And then it doubles after that. That's why you're seeing what the Celtics have done right now, right? Because by moving contracts that maybe are worth, I don't know, $80 million in 1 year, it really saved them like $220 million by moving the two guys, because they were obviously been over the luxury tax threshold. The other things that were implemented in the new collective bargaining agreement a couple of years ago were strategic things that were put in place to really keep the rich from getting richer, to keep the dynasties from happening. And that's why I also noted on Twitter last night the fact that I thought it was notable, significant, that what Adam Silver had to say, in that he strategically highlighted this direction, which is, quote, with 7 different champions over the past 7 years, welcome to the new era of NBA basketball where every team has a shot. I thought that was notable because that was your commissioner leaning into, hey, look, this is like NFL football now. Everybody has a shot. This is not about dynasties anymore. It's not the Warriors, anything like that. The challenge in all that is obviously attention. That's a whole different question. But last thing, as I try to summarize here, moving forward now, the Pacers have to have serious considerations for different trades and moves that they've done because of what's been added, which is, it's kind of silly names, but it's the first apron and the second apron. And again, with each of those comes greater restrictions, including you can't take back more money in a trade. You lose access, most notably, to your exceptions. I think that's probably the thing that's probably most worthwhile and notable to fans. You have your mid-level exception and trade. You had your trade exceptions and those different things that you lose access to. And so for last night in particular, if I'm understanding all this correctly, by the Pacers having that move where they sent cash for the trade and for pick 38, by sending cash, that triggered them in the second apron and being hard capped. Here's the reality, and in simplistic terms for everyone. The Pacers, where they're at right now, they're not going to be looking to make any kind of major trades or anything like that. This does not restrict them re-signing their own, by the way, which they plan to do. And so a lot of it is not that big a deal given what their plans are and given where they want to head.
Oh, thank God. We made it through. This makes sense.
Scott, if and I guess I should stop saying if, whenever they give Miles Turner this contract, would that, and I'll just throw 2 names out there, would that cost them Benedict Mathurin or Obi Toppin? Or would you see, or if I threw out there, hey, do you think all 3 of those will be on the team next year, you would say yes?
Well, the biggest concern in all this is not the aprons or anything like that, to be clear. Again, that has no restriction in re-signing your own. That would come down to, how comfortable are you at paying them each what they want to be worth and obviously, just like any other scenario. And then second, should you go into the luxury tax, which almost likely you will have to here, at what level are you comfortable with it? Now, Benedict Batherson, to be clear, will be on his rookie deal for another year. And so that does not directly impact you this year, even if you agree to it this summer, as you know. But Miles absolutely does. And so right now the Pacers, I believe, are about $20 million or so under the luxury tax. I think for certain Miles Turner is going to get $20 million, anywhere from 20 to 30. I think it'll probably be pushing more towards 30. That would be about 19% of the cap. And that's the other thing I would encourage fans to understand here is because of this new TV money, which is incredible. I get, billions of dollars. Because of that, you're going to continue to see the salary cap go up each year by the maximum allowed, which is 10%. Continues to go up 10% for the next several years at minimum. And so because of that, it's probably easier to discuss contracts as percentage of the caps. That's what I would encourage people to do, rather than, oh my God, he's not worth 30 million, 45 million, 20 million. When you put it in percentage of the cap standpoint, it directly inflects, let's say, for inflation or the new money that you're dealing with, for example. But to your original question, you absolutely, in my opinion, bring back Miles and continue that partnership. Mathurin, I could see very likely that you treat it much like you did Isaiah Jackson this season, which was he is eligible for an extension. Let's see how this plays out. You'll have him in restricted free agency, which means you can match any offer out there, which means you do not lose him for nothing. And if you want him back, you can keep him. And then Isaiah Jackson, I think it would probably be a low risk for you to bring him back. He's so young, so agile, and fits within this team framework that, assuming the Pacers are good with his health, which I don't know why they wouldn't, although he's coming obviously off an Achilles, that would make too much sense as well to bring him back. And there you have your two centers that you expected to go into this past season with.
The coverage is at Fieldhouse Files. It is a ton to get to. I know I wanted to throw a Dewana Bonner question at you, but we're a little up against it, Scott. I know you'll be in the building tonight. Fever and Sparks coming up 7 o'clock. That one begins. As always, sir, thank you, and have a great summer, man.
I hope that was educational. I appreciate it. Thanks.
It was. Scott Agnes right there. Payless Liquors Hotline. We'll get an I Gotta Know in the 9 o'clock hour. I've got a horrific attempt at a Pacers season analogy I'll throw your way. I'm already embarrassed the fact that I'm gonna say it out loud. But
get the boo button ready.
Yeah, it will be booed heavily. One of those Rick Carlisle clips that Mark played earlier will have to be played. It is Kevin Bowe and James Wood, Mark Dykton here on a Thursday.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I'll get to an I Gotta Know from Mark Dykton here in the 9 o'clock hour. Much more on what the Pacers could, maybe should do with the 38th pick tonight, 38-54, where they're currently sitting at here as we get to round 2 of the draft. I did have to laugh last night I was saying to open up the show. Honestly, I didn't really pay too much attention to the early part of the draft. My ears were drawn to the TV on 2 separate occasions. One, I could have sworn I was hearing Michael Grady's voice in the background. Was he doing the PA last night inside of Barclays Center? I swear that was his voice. Obviously, he used to work for the Nets, their sideline reporter. And then all of a sudden, I hear Malika Andrews drop T.J. McConnell's name right before the 9th pick in the draft. I'm thinking, wait a minute, has he been traded?
She should have compared him to Cooper Flagg. Doing disservice to, the Great White Hope.
I think that was
Tyrese Halliburton calls him.
Knipple or, maybe Liam McNeely, he, going with the T.J. McConnell comp there. But yeah, all of a sudden, right before the Raptors getting ready to pick, she drops McConnell's name as, I guess, the analogy of playing hard is a skill. And when we talk about length and upside and wingspan in the draft, maybe we should talk about playing hard. Because according to T.J. McConnell, that's a skill. And it's a skill he does exceptionally well. I did not have on the NBA draft bingo card a T.J. McConnell name drop before the 9th pick.
I did. I figured they would do all of the stereotypical scrappy, moxie, and then they would go with T.J. McConnell.
Mm-hmm.
Who, by the way,
that's how you describe the white players.
Yeah,
right?
That's what they do.
They're scrappy.
And you know what? I think I said this in our pregame show before Game 7. I had a line in one of my stories for The Athletic, and I was talking about how all the Pacers are proving people wrong and, weathering the storm, and I had a line that they took out because I said that T.J. McConnell is ruining all of the stereotypical white guy statements, and he can actually really, really hoop. And they took that out, and they put the undrafted guy from Arizona can really, really hoop. And I'm like, that doesn't hit the same.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, guys. I mean, it's an honest statement. It is true. Every time there's any average height white point guard, they're like, he's scrappy, he has moxie, he's unathletic, but he plays hard. T.J. McConnell is very athletic. You don't get downhill into the paint very often if you're not athletic. So I digress.
One thing too about T.J. McConnell, James, I'm always struck by, like, from a height standpoint, like, he's just as tall as I am. Like, he's a legit 6'2", maybe even 6'3".
Yeah.
That is something that I've been struck by. And also, we played this game a little bit during the college season, but, like, Braden Smith, comparing him to T.J. McConnell, they are two very different players.
Are you sure?
Very different players.
I'm just saying, complexity-wise.
Like, I mean,
that's usually that's what I mean, though. It's annoying. Like, they're not even the same player at all.
Like, height-wise, shooting-wise, they are two very different.
Well, Braden Smith and T.J. McConnell have the exact same jumper, if you can't tell.
Different players.
They have a high motor.
Yeah, I hate that.
T.J. McConnell takes about
they're gritty,
8 seconds
athletic.
to load the three-point shot.
The man can really freaking hoop.
Bring your lunch pail. He's that kind of guy.
Again, Scott Agnes just joined us. Matt Taylor a little bit earlier in the 8 o'clock hour. We're expecting the Colts training camp schedule at some point here. I know we didn't have a chance to get to it with Scott. We touched on it a time or two this show, but James, for our audience that maybe has missed it, yesterday we discussed the DeWanna Bonner situation with the Fever. This is one of the more heralded free agent signings in the history of their franchise. She is a first ballot Hall of Famer when all it's said and done. I kind of called it yesterday, think like David West Pacers signing, but I would say kind of the David West signing on steroids in terms of what her resume looked like. And now the thought was, hey, she'd come here as the veteran voice and she would help, mentor a younger group in getting a championship. She had played with Stephanie White the last 2 years in Connecticut, been an all-star the last 2 years. She had been away from the team for about 2 to 3 weeks. And based off her statement yesterday, I mean, she has quit the Fever. She is wanting to find a different situation. She initially started this season in the lineup and then was benched. She was very bad on the floor early in the year. Lexi Hall has taken her spot in the starting lineup. So for our audience out there that maybe hasn't been super plugged into the story, I know you wrote something on Bonner after her introductory press conference. What do you make of what I think is a pretty crazy situation?
Yeah, it's a unique situation. It's one you rarely see in professional sports. She did give an update, I guess, with more of her thoughts 2 hours ago on Instagram. It's her working out in the gym. She has Jay-Z's Legacy song as the background music. And the caption is, "A quitter? Nah, never been that. But when the time comes, quote, let's just make sure the apologies are just as loud as the disrespect. In due time, DB," with a crown emoji. So I don't know what other way to perceive this. You asked out. You went to management and said, I can't do this. So what other way are we supposed to frame this as? Now, I personally think that, hey, if you think I'm in year 16, this is not going to work, I don't have all this time to figure this out, get me the heck out of here, that is fine. But we can also say that you perhaps quit on your team and you want to be elsewhere. I mean, two things can be true, where you want to be selfish with your career, which is your right. You want to go somewhere where you might be a better fit, which is your right. But at the same time, we can't sit here and act like this is a normal occurrence or everything you did was the normal professional manner or normal course of action. This is very rare. And again, you chose to come here. That is the thing that perhaps is the most odd part about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not a trade.
Yeah, this wasn't a trade. You were not drafted here. You chose to come here because you said, not us, you want to win a championship. You want to get back to the finals. And not even 10 games into your tenure, playing-wise, you decided I can't do either of those things here with this team.
If she was a college student, she didn't even make it through a semester. She didn't even give it the old college try.
Oh, Mark, she didn't make it to Halloween.
No.
You know, I mean, if you want to play that out. Yeah, I mean, it's unprecedented, I think, frankly, in sports. I can't think of a situation like it where, again, a free agent signing, I think that's a great point you make, James, of like, this is not that, you know, you got traded here or even like you got drafted here. You occasionally see people that are like, yeah, I don't want to go play there. No, she chose to come here in free agency. She was bad on the floor, got benched, and then after a few games of playing in the bench role, see ya. And it is massive egg on the face of the Fever in giving her a very significant contract and now being in a situation where you had to waive her and, you know, theoretically have got nothing in return. So we'll hit more on the Pacers coming up, 9 o'clock hour. Again, I got to know from Mark Dykton. It is the Fan Morning Show here on a Thursday. Kevin Bowen, James Boyd, Mark Dykton.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Did every high school basketball team 12 years ago come out of the tunnel to that song?
Had to.
Possibly. I still think they come out to that song. That's one of my biggest gripes with Indiana high school basketball, which I love. I've often tweeted it is my love language. But can we update the playlist, please? Because these playlists are still from when I was in school. Like, if I hear All I Do Is Win
oh yeah,
one more time, especially with programs that do not always win, I'm like, what is going on?
Don't they do that after every Pacers win?
Do that. Well, update the playlist, please. Please.
That T.I. run was generational, though. He had hit after hit for a while.
Oh, man. Whatever you like on repeat, pretty much, for
I think, I'm serious.
my generation.
I believe that high school ADs had some kid burn a CD, and they just stuck that CD in there somewhere and never reopened the thing.
Oh, we were in soccer. We were playing on the football field, and like, you guys want your own music, just like make a CD or whatever. So they had one of the players make a CD. It was not edited. So they played it on the loudspeaker, and you were hearing every word and you've never seen more faculty members run to the booth in your life. Because that started playing with a packed crowd, and they're like, oh my God. Like, well, you asked us to do it. We played the songs we wanted to play.
I was the guy who burned the disc for my weight room when we had weights class for all the athletes.
Burn the disc.
I burned the disc, baby.
Might be the
and I didn't have clean
James
versions of all the songs, but they were all illegally downloaded. So sometimes you didn't get like the clear, like, just silence during the curse word or whatever. You would get the and, like, you know,
whatever LimeWire was giving you that day.
Yeah. I did the YouTube to MP3 converter.
I remember that. Good times, man.
Yeah.
That was consistent. That was more consistent because you knew what you were getting ahead of time, as opposed to LimeWire, where you might download what you think is Soulja Boy, and it's Bill
Listen
Kennedy.
to the track.
Yeah.
I was cleaning out our garage the other day, and I found a spindle of blank CDs. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing with these?
That is
If I put these on, like, Facebook Marketplace, would anybody want these?
Some
If I
of
give
the
them
local
for free,
garage
That's when you got to find the old laptop and tell your kids, here's your history lesson for the day.
maybe, like, the requirements for getting a job for, like, these newly college graduates, like, burn a CD. You show me you can do that, you can work anywhere. Can anybody do that these days?
We'll discuss upcoming pick 38-54 for the Pacers. Mark Dykton's got, and I got a no here that we'll get to as well. Can I throw you my horrible attempt at a Jake Quarry analogy?
Yes.
I feel like Mark's been, like, waiting for this.
I am, because I'm going to drop the hammer on you if it's horrible.
All right. Let's picture James Boyd and I don't know each other. We belly up at the bar, all right? We're in, where are the Colts playing this year? Berlin. Somehow, you and I know nothing about each other, but we become friendly in conversation at the bar together. And
I thought belly up meant like we were about to squabble.
No,
I'm glad you explained that.
Yeah, no. We're just sitting next to each other at the bar.
Belly up. I'll be looking up at you.
And I'm trying to make an analogy here to the Pacers season, because, like, how do you describe the Pacers season? I think that's like a little bit of a difficult one to fully describe. I think it probably takes a few sentences, I guess, to describe. And so let's say James and I are next to each other at the bar, and James asked me, hey, tell me about your marriage. And I say to James, well, marriage is great. Wife is awesome. Excellent mom. Super supportive. Have a lot of fun together. Great vacations. Lets me play golf when I want. She's so nice. All of it. I can't say enough good things. Great memories. So many countless moments, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm raving about it. I keep on going on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, James interjects and is like, wow, that sounds awesome. How did it end? And then I simply say to James, well, it ended with her cheating on me with some dude from work, and I found out she's got 2 kids with a guy.
Jeez.
Is that an apt description for the Pacers season or no?
Oh, man. I don't know.
Or was that horrific? Was that awful?
Oh, man.
Should I go on vacation after that?
Did you land the plane or what? My goodness.
I just want to be the best Jake that I can be.
That's you right there.
I don't even know where to start. I'm going to say no. That is not a good
was horrible.
Like, I don't know if
Mark,
Halliburton.
no.
I would say thumbs down on that one.
Were you following at all?
Oh, man.
I was following, but the whole cheating and 2 kids thing, that came out
How
of
else
left
do you
field.
describe the Halliburton injury?
Not, but with infidelity.
Yeah, he didn't cheat on you.
Oh my goodness.
I obviously I'm not meaning it.
This would
literally.
be like if he tore his Achilles and said, "I want out. I want to get traded."
Okay, so maybe
if he pulled the DeWanna Bonner,
he still wants to.
Right, that's the analogy you're making here.
If
he still wants to be with you, but he did do the cheating.
If he dropped 15 in the first half and he came out at halftime and said, "I'm out. You got the best of me. I'm leaving," then you could say that. I would say that cheating with 2 kids after what happened to him, I don't draw those comparisons.
In 5 years, when we look back on this Pacers season, will we remember the Halliburton game winners first, or will we remember what happened in Game 7 first?
Oh.
Like, that's basically what I'm getting at. It was a horrific attempt at getting there.
I'm not going to lie. I'll probably remember or think of Game 7 first because in my mind, it's one of the greatest what-ifs ever in sports.
Yeah, not just Indiana sports-wise, but like all-time sports-wise.
Yeah, sports period. Yeah, I would agree. We had the caller, Mark, I'm trying to think who it was. The caller made the great analogy. I think it actually was a Cubs fan that said, you oftentimes say at the end of a season, hey, we have next year.
Mm-hmm.
And in one moment, next year was ripped out of you.
Yeah. That's why it was such a...
Jeremiah Johnson said yesterday, it would have been better to lose in Game 6.
Right.
And
would you want that? Like, if you knew that if he plays Game 7, like, you could win, or there's a 95% chance he's going to have this injury, would you rather just say, I'll take the Game 6 loss and have a healthy Halliburton?
I know. Yeah, trust me, that's where I was getting at with the that horrific analogy.
There's that 5% chance that he's healthy and you win a championship. But there's a 95% chance that he loses his Achilles and you lose next season and who knows how much longer. Or you could have just lost in Game 6 and you have a healthy Halliburton going into next season.
I know.
What would Pacers fans have said to that?
I know medically it's not this easy, but this is kind of the conversation
Good question, Mark, by the way,
we had a couple weeks ago about Halliburton and playing through this injury. You know, we had discussed with Scott Agnes, remember a couple Thursdays ago. Scott had come on with us, had listed out, hey, 22 of 23 guys with calf injuries. They missed time during the regular season and the postseason. Those guys missed on average 6 days. I'm curious, and again, I know it's not this easy medically, but if the Pacers ever presented to Tyrese, hey, man, if you go out there and attempt this, there's a 20% chance of the Achilles injury. There's a 50% chance for the Achilles injury. And again, I know medically it's not that black and white, but like what he did is absurd. Him gutting it out, him attempting to play on that. That is one of the more commendable things we probably have ever seen, frankly, from a sporting standpoint.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if there was ever a number thrown out there and if there ever was a number that would have made Halliburton sit in street clothes. Or if it, I mean, Mark just threw out 95%. Can you imagine? Hey, man, 95% chance you go out there and play tonight and you're going to tear your Achilles. And again, I know it's not black and white and that cut in your eye, but yeah, it's just, I think it's so fascinating to look back on this Pacers season. There's so much good, so much great with it.
There's so much pain.
Well, I think it's a lot to consider, too, just because we talked yesterday, too, just about how wide open the Eastern Conference appears to be next season. And you've got a fully healthy Halliburton, you brought back Miles Turner, and you're basically running it back. I mean, that group has to be top 2 odds to win the Eastern Conference, right?
Yeah, maybe
You're
even
the favorite, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, top 2 or 3.
The only thing,
top 2 or 3 to win it all
yeah.
is where I would go.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I don't know the app comparison to anything else locally. It's Braden Smith tearing his ACL in the national title game against UConn. It's Peyton Manning tearing his Achilles in the Super Bowl against the Bears and you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm trying to think, what are the app comparisons for it?
Despite the inherent risk, and I'm sure they probably told him to some degree, hey, there's a possibility you could rupture your Achilles. That had to be a conversation. I don't see how it could not be, considering what we've seen with previous calf injuries leading to Achilles tears. But I think part of Tyrese being a competitor, he was always going to want to know if he hadn't played, boy, what if I played? especially if they had lost without him, he would probably be sitting and saying, I spent the next, he's 5 years into his career. I spent the next 8, 9, let's say he plays 10 more years, 15 years in the NBA. I never got back to that moment. And would I sacrifice one season to have that moment back? And I think part of him would regret it more if he hadn't played.
I think, like most athletes, you work that hard all your life. If you have that moment and you don't do everything you can to play through it, you will regret it for the rest of your life. You don't think you could live through it. I was listening to Chicago radio, and they have Tom Waddle, who's a former Bears wide receiver, and they're in a playoff game, and he suffered a concussion. And back then, concussion protocol was what it was before. And they asked him, given the Halliburton situation, if the concussion protocol was what it is today back then, would you have pushed yourself to play? He said, absolutely. Because I know the inherent risks that come with being a professional athlete. I know what I signed up for. And if you're telling me I have a chance to play for a championship or just a postseason thing, I'm going to do it. And I have to think that's exactly what Tyrese Halliburton and other players think too. They have that mentality where I've worked my whole life. I've put my body, I've worked out every single day. I eat healthy. I do all this other stuff day in and day out to work to get to this moment. I'm not going to let it pass me by, because how many athletes don't have championships that would relish the opportunity to even have a chance to play in a Game 7 given their health situation? Charles Barkley, you don't think he would like to have a championship if he could? If he had an Achilles or a calf strain and they said you might tear it, I guarantee you he's going to go out there and play in his prime.
It's just such a it's such an interesting dynamic that I don't even know if it's arguably, I would say the most memorable season in the entire franchise's history is met with the darkest moment.
Dude, it feels like
a
Greek tragedy or something. Like,
it's so true. And obviously, I want to make sure like Mouse in the Palace is in like a different like angle in what you're going with here. But like from an individual player injury standpoint, and I touched on this on Monday. Like again, Paul George breaks his leg, and a broken leg, not to get like super medically, but that's different than a torn Achilles. Paul George has come back and been an exceptional player since that injury. The torn Achilles, that is not as much of a given. Not to even mention, how long of the rehab it is. Even the Oladipo injury, that occurs in, kind of a midweek game in January, not Game 7 of the NBA Finals on a night when that man had the look.
Yeah, he had that killer mentality where he's like, I'm going to take your heart and I'm going to walk out of here with the championship.
Yep. I mean, I know it was tied on the scoreboard when he got hurt, but it felt like the Pacers. And Rick said this with us on Tuesday. I mean, Rick was like, we were there. He was... You could feel it. I thought that was one of the more demonstrative Rick games on the sideline in quite a while as well.
Yeah, I think part of that had to do with, what can I do to, address some of the situations where...
You think the injury led to more of that?
I think so.
He felt like he had to do more?
Yeah, just get a little ramped up a little bit more, try to galvanize the guys, give them energy, give them life, give them some fight. Because you're not going to win the talent category, so can you win in other areas with just your might? And we saw that was just not enough, because it wasn't a matter of how bad the Pacers wanted. They have, and they showed, a very indomitable spirit where it's like, we're going to go down swinging. You're not going to just conquer us or just embarrass us. But it wasn't enough from a talent standpoint. And that's where I was. After the tie went down, even when the Pacers took a 1-point lead into halftime, deep down, I'm like, oh, this is over. Because at some point, the Thunder's talent is going to be too much for you to handle, especially in that building on the road.
Should I amend the analogy at all, or is it so bad I just throw it in the trash and act like it never happened? What an idiot. I'm such an idiot.
I don't know. I was with you until you got to the infidelity part, and I was like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we all agree it might have been the darkest moment in franchise history. What else do you want me to say?
Well, is the darkest moment the Malice at the Palace?
It's like different levels of dark.
Fair.
It's just, yeah.
I only ask that because there's a certain level of like
that team was
heroism in the Achilles tear, and
boy, the whole Greek tragedy. Yeah, it's like,
I'm so serious about that. I feel like I'm in like a mythology class or something.
One day in Brownsburg schools, Mark's girls are going to be learning about this, and they're like, actually, our Greek tragedy today is going to be the 2024-2025 Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, he's like, well, what's the guy in Sycharis? I'm like, you flew too close to the sun. Got your wings clipped
Icarus,
a little bit.
Yeah,
Icarus. I'm sorry, but
I mean, that's the thing. You got too close.
Yeah.
I mean, you got way too close to it all. I got to know with Mark Dykton coming up in a few. Pick 38 tonight. Again, the Pacers moved up. Or I shouldn't say moved up. They still have 54. They actually traded for an additional second-round pick 38. I threw out the name Ryan Kalkbrenner. I think our college basketball fans, big dude from Creighton, great shot blocker. The kid from Stanford, Reynal, French dude, he can shoot it a little bit, stretch the floor. Again, James, that debate earlier, center or point guard. You settled on center, is that right?
Yes. Bring me the sky hook.
Gosh, does anyone do the sky hook anymore?
Kalkbrenner drew a sky hook?
I actually think he can. And then the other former Creighton teammate, I should say, Ryan Nembhard. Ironically enough, Andrew Nembhard's little brother, more of a traditional point guard. Some people brought up Cam Jones from Marquette. He's been thrown around there. And this is what you get in the second round. Last year, Tristan Newton, the Pacers drafted. You get kind of these, pretty proven college players. Janai Broome from Auburn is still on the board. But for whatever reason, they lack, modern-day NBA traits to put them into round one. It'll be interesting to watch what the Pacers do tonight there at pick 38. All right, let's go ahead and check it out.
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, we're going a little bit different order on this Morning Checkdown. James, tonight it is the Indiana Fever and the LA Sparks inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Sparks have been very bad, especially as of late. They have gotten blown off the floor quite often. This is Kelsey Plum's team now, as that trade we saw happen in the offseason. Still no Cameron Brink, right?
No.
As she is recovering from her own injuries there. But again, the Fever on paper, you'd expect them to win, and I'm very curious how we see Caitlin Clark bounce back, as she just had a 3-game Western road trip where she was 1 of 23 from 3, and she had 22 turnovers. Every time I say those numbers, I'm astonished that they're true.
Yeah, it's rough, and she will have to be much better. I'm sure she'll be very self-critical about herself. And I've been saying this for a little while now. I know Caitlin Clark has range out of this world, but can you get some easier looks at 3, and does that come at the expense of maybe not taking as many? I'm not so sure, or am I just overthinking it and she's just in a shooting slump and has to make some shots? We'll see.
We know DeWanna Bonner waived by the team. We talked about that a little bit earlier. The team will also be without Damiris Dantas for the next 2 months. For those that don't follow the Fever, I'd kind of compare Dantas' contributions to like an Obi Toppin. She comes off the bench and I think provides pretty consistent production for them. So front court depth will be tested here for the Fever the next couple of weeks. Dantas is with Brazil in their pursuit to try and be in the Olympics. Beyond me why they can't play these games in the offseason. So Damiris Dantas will not be with the team here for the next 2 weeks. Fever play tonight and then a quick turnaround in Dallas tomorrow before they got about a week off.
Real quick, Kelsey Plum, as you mentioned, she was 25 when she tore her Achilles in 2020. Missed the entire season, came back, has been a 3-time All-Star and Olympic champion, I believe 6th Woman of the Year as well. So there's hope on the other side, my friends, for Tyrese Halliburton.
Mark John tweeted in. He goes, to use Mark's college description for DeWanna Bonner, would that be like Larry Bird at IU? It's interesting. Larry Bird, of course, very brief stay in Bloomington. I would say the financial component would probably be the biggest difference.
Yes.
I don't want to act like Robert Montgomery was throwing anything under the table down there in French Lick to get Larry Bird. $200,000 for DeWanna Bonner, slightly different from a free agent signing. Major League Baseball yesterday, Reds lose, Cubs win. I think for the most part locally, the other Midwest teams did well. Of course, the Cubs beat the Cardinals in that one, and Indians lost at home to Omaha. And again, the NBA draft round 2 coming up tonight, pick 38 and 54. You think we get a draft and stash? You think there'll be one of those foreign players for the Pacers to get drafted?
It's a possibility, which that always fascinates me, and I'm like, you guys know more about this than
Mojave
me.
King's little brother?
Yeah, because that's always unique. I'm like, well, why draft the guy who's not going to come over and play? But again, they get paid a lot more than I do to make those decisions.
We did a little luxury tax education earlier. You can find that up on the podcast. Again, last night, draft-wise, I don't think anything too major. Dylan Harper to the Spurs. So what are we looking at from a Spurs starting lineup standpoint? Are they keeping De'Aaron Fox?
I'm not so sure. I mean, he's a very good player, but also you just drafted Dylan Harper. do you just pair them together? I don't know how it works if Dylan Harper is supposed to be your lead guard at some point. You want him to get point guard experience. You have, Castle over there as well. He's pretty good.
Castle, yeah.
Keldon Johnson, who's an Olympic champion, by the way. He's a good player.
Wing-wise, Devin Vessel.
Yeah, he's a good player as well. Averaged 20 points a game, I believe, at some point in his career.
Sohan was a top 10 pick, was he not? The guy with the hair?
I don't know. That's an interesting, proposition because, as we know, De'Aaron Fox is on a huge contract, too. So could you offload that and recoup some other players or draft capital, something like that, to continue to build around Wemby?
And you still got Chris Paul hanging around. Is he still doing?
He's a free agent.
Yeah.
Can I introduce you on Chris Paul to the Pacers?
Yeah, someone mentioned that. And this kind of gets back into a little of the debate we had with Jeremiah Johnson yesterday, James, at this time. I thought JJ brought up a really good point. I said to him, all right, Miles Turner, let's put that convo to the side. What's the most interesting storyline, the thing you're most curious about? And he goes, do the Pacers make a guard move? And when you just look at it on paper, the Pacers just lost 20 points and 10 assists. If you just lost 20 points and 10 assists, wouldn't you make an attempt to go find a player to help you in that area at that position? And yet we're not really talking about that. We're just talking about internally doing it, right?
Yeah. Like, what can the other guys do to take on a bigger role? But
is that the right process? Should we just be looking at it internally?
It's a risk. You're hoping for a lot of, overdoing their, expectations and everything.
Like, hey, Nembhard, you're now at point guard, okay? Hey, Mathurin, you're now in the starting lineup. Hey, Jarris Walker, you're now more the lead guy with the second unit.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that you shouldn't try to go out and get another established point guard.
Yeah.
But what will it cost? That's always the question.
And you're looking at that to say that dude comes in and starts, and then you leave the other four in the spots they're in, and you leave Mathurin with the second unit? That would be the thought process?
Ooh. Yes, because I'm like, you don't bring in a guy like Chris Paul to bring him off the bench, do you? I don't know. It's tough.
I'm good with the in-house try and
patchwork. But you need a third point guard, right?
Yeah, I mean, to get a third point guard, obviously they're going to have to go outside the building. But and let's be honest, guys, it's not like they have an abundance of riches to try and patchwork it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Chris Paul coming. Well, me personally talking about Chris Paul coming on a very veteran. Hey, do you still love basketball? How much you love basketball? And hey, Indiana loves basketball. How old is
Chris Paul?
40.
Dear Lord.
But in fairness to him, he's still like a quality player in like short minutes, I guess. I don't know. Can I introduce you to Russell Westbrook?
No, God. You imagine 82 nights out of the year? I'd be at We Grow Hair Indy every other week if I had to watch Russell Westbrook 82 nights out of the year.
These are the options, which leads me to believe they will lead more towards internal growth.
My brain is clearly fried after that attempt of a segment right there in the 9 o'clock hour. We'll get into the brain of Mark Dykton coming up next. It's I Gotta Know time right here on the Fan Morning Show.
listening to the Fan Morning Show on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
A little bit of a busier Thursday night schedule here from a sports standpoint for late June. Again, the Fever sparks at 7 o'clock tonight. The Pacers have picks 38 and 54. The draft begins at 8. So if you're kind of projecting out, honestly, that Pacers 38th overall pick could happen kind of right around the Fever in the fourth quarter tonight. So obviously our airwaves will carry Fever and Sparks. You'll hear John Nolan and Bria Goss and Eddie Garrison on your pre and post starting at 6:45. Colts training camp schedule should be announced as well at some point here. It sounds like by the end of this week. James, anything you care about? Outside of your own sanity?
Actually be there? I know their report date is the 22nd. When do I have to be out there doing real work?
So that means Chris Ballard, probably the 22nd, right? Don't we typically hear from them on report day?
We do. So there's the answer to my question right there, Kevin. I'll be working the 22nd for sure. You know what? I was thinking about this. WNBA All-Star Weekend is the weekend before that. And so I will certainly be going into camp a little fatigued already, but it'll be fun though.
August 4th through the 7th, I would pencil that in as kind of quiet time at Grand Park. So probably think about dates around that. Obviously, we'll await the schedule here. Just one joint practice. That is the 14th with the Green Bay Packers. But Colts will be primarily in Baltimore during that week, the 4th through the 7th. The man that pressed that button would be Mark Dykton. Now we get into the brain of him.
He's got questions.
How about a game?
They've got answers.
Hey, I'm more of a cornhole man myself.
Sports, music, movies.
What?
High fashion.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
And everything in between.
You ever seen a foot with 4 toes?
It's time to get a glimpse into the mind of Mark Dykton.
Stop it, you're scaring me.
It's time for I Gotta Know.
Okay, you punks, I want a good, clean fight. Let's get it on.
All right, boys. Let's start with some good vibes on this Thursday morning. The moment of the Pacer season that you'll always remember, the one that you'll be telling your kids and grandkids about. What's the moment from this Pacer season, regular or postseason, that you'll always remember?
James Boyd?
For me, it is probably Game 5, first round, the crazy comeback. Tyrese scores over Giannis to send them home. The Bucks, that is, and then send the Pacers into the second round. One of the greatest comebacks you'll ever see. I was there in person. I didn't see, obviously, the other game winners or game-tying shots because they were on the road, but that was a special, special moment and the start of a special run.
Boy, do we have enough time to cover it all. It's a great, great question, Mark. That obviously is a good one that James points out. The easy answer is all those comebacks. Honestly, my favorite moment.
When they got to 50 wins.
Financially, yes. I'm going to go with the Neesmith tip dunk in the Cavs game.
Yeah, that was nasty.
To ignite that comeback.
The lane violation.
Just the ferocious physical violence that he contributed on that play.
Man.
I'll go there. I mean, I love the Miles Turner, Indiana, after they beat the Knicks. The 4-point play, too. I mean, the Mark Boyle describes it as he's floating out of bounds. I know I'm naming like 10 now at this point, so I apologize.
You're not playing the game right, Kevin.
Neesmith tip dunk is my answer, but boy, the 4-point play is probably going to be the one that your kids will want to see. And wasn't that over Giannis?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right in the grill.
And then
of
when
Giannis,
he made it, he like sat on the floor and looked at everybody
the Bucks
like,
bench,
yeah, I'm the man.
Mm-hmm. Mine is an easy one, and probably one that a lot of Pacers fans will think of, but the shot that Halliburton had in Game 1 against the Knicks, where it bounces straight up in the air and goes in. You never see a shot like that go straight up and actually go in the net. And the fact that it did, and the choke sign and everything like that, there were so many, just from that alone, we got so many highlights with Reggie pointing at him and everything like that.
I think if that would have been the game winner.
Even still.
Yeah,
I still think it was great because it was one of those. That's when you really felt like the season was special, when you're like, they are truly never out of any game.
I think one of the more replayed highlights we'll see will be the beautiful symphony of the Neesmith corner 3, Game 6 against the Thunder, when Siakam's playing defense, gets knocked on the floor, ball, I think Miles might have stripped it or something. Tyrese saves it from out of bounds, back to Miles, back to Ty. Siakam gets up, runs the middle of the floor, to Siakam, Nesmith, corner 3. Like, just that basketball harmony, globetrottery feel to it. I think that'll be one that people love as well.
All right, let's get a little reality now. The Pacer with the most pressure heading in next season is who?
Mather.
Miles Turner.
I think I'm going to go with James on that one because that's a good point. You're going to get new money in all likelihood.
Yeah, but he's going to already have the money. Matherin will be chasing the money still.
Yeah, but I think from just you played horrible in the finals and we need you to be better. And I don't even know if he'll be able to answer that pressure or whatever because he was pretty fine throughout most of the playoffs, I would argue. I know in the conference finals it kind of tapered off a little bit, but he wasn't as bad as he was in the finals. I think that pressure will kind of, sit on him for a while after he performed that way. But just to be different, I guess to have 3 different answers for the panel, I'll go Nembhard because, like, just pressure-wise, you're being, now told, hey, we need you to step up in the absence of one of the best point guards in the NBA, one of the best players in the NBA. What are you going to do to kind of help us stay afloat here?
That's a good one. Yeah, I'm going to say Turner only because, like I said, he's going to get new contract, new money. So obviously you're signing an extension, which means he'll be around for a few more years. Whereas Matherin, I guess if he doesn't step up, they could always say, like, see you later. Like they could get out from under him if he's not performing to the level that they need him to perform at. So that's why I think it will be Turner. So we'll have to see. All right, let's talk a little.
How about this? One just quick one. Ridger here commented in the YouTube chat, ESPN has the top 10 playoff moments. Halliburton had 5 of the top 10.
That's unbelievable. But also not because he had so many great.
Right.
I mean, that's why he's getting that, the admiration that he was and everything. All right, some Colts projections as we get ready for training camp a few weeks out. There was a release of what is most likely for all 32 teams to happen in this scenario. You can put your money anywhere you want. For the Colts, there's examples like to miss the playoffs, to lose in the wild card round, lose in the division round, lose in the conference championship, so on and so forth. To miss the playoffs is minus 225 for the Indianapolis Colts. Are you projecting them to make the playoffs at all, or is it to miss the playoffs where you would put your money?
Which, to explain to our non-betting audience out there, that means they are expected to miss the playoffs.
Heavy favorites to not make the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, minus 225 would be like what? The Thunder over the Pacers in one of those games.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like during the postseason is probably the best way to put it. Gosh, I haven't really even given this a ton of thought, to be honest with you. I should probably start paying attention to it. I will say they miss it, but I don't think those odds. I think those odds are closer to even money than what you just read off. I think the AFC South is still blah.
Yeah, I mean,
and the opportunities there the first 2 weeks. Miami and Denver out of the gate, those first 2 games, I cannot emphasize enough how just vitally critical they are to your season. They're AFC games, they're at home, they're against 2 teams you think will be in the wild card mix with you. I will say a slight miss, but those odds should be closer.
Yeah, the Colts currently, as far as division is concerned, are the 3rd favorite to win the AFC South behind the Texans at plus 110, Jaguars at plus 300, Colts 310, and then Tennessee Titans distant plus 750.
I'm going to say they missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because their quarterback play still does not move me. I know Daniel Jones.
Well, it moves you. It just might not move you in the right direction.
Right. I mean, neither one has really established that they're a good quarterback in the NFL. I know Daniel Jones had one really good season with the Giants when they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. Can he, replicate that with the Colts? Perhaps, but I'm not banking on that. And then just knowing that we say this every year, the division's wide open. It's wide open every year, and every year they lose it. So I cannot, in good faith, back that.
Hard to argue. All right, last but not least, what are we watching? I mentioned earlier today the Bear Season 4 dropped last night. Ashley and I watched the first 2 episodes. Very, very good. I'm curious what you guys are watching. What is on your watch list?
I think I told you guys during the break. I swear Maddie somehow has found a different version of a Love Island show every night.
You keep saying Maddie, but I feel like you're watching these shows too.
I look up at times. I mean, trust me. I mean, the eyes can get drawn towards that TV pretty quickly, honestly, with some of the looks. But there's so many of them. I feel like there's British ones. I feel like there's American ones. I feel like we're in this location, we're in that location, we're making out with this person. I mean, it's a lot. So yeah, outside of sports, which obviously has dominated our TVs here lately, that's what it's been.
So you're begrudgingly watching these shows. You're in the vicinity of these shows
Correct.
being on, so therefore you
But
are
again,
watching
we were
them.
locked. I mean, I told you, Maddie cried twice during Game 7. Now, no word yet if she was crying because there were tears of joy that the Speedo would not be worn, but she cried when Halliburton went down, and then again when the game was over.
Now, what do they hand out on Love Island? Like, there's roses for the Bachelor. What are they handing out on Love Island? Is it like a lei or like a pineapple? What are they giving out?
Well, it probably should be a lei, honestly. I believe, don't you have to be with someone to stick around?
You are asking the wrong person.
have no
I have
idea.
not watched a second of this show.
I always
think
thought
it's-
there's like eliminations for all these shows. They're like, sorry,
Right.
Darren, you didn't make
and
it.
I think you have to be coupled up.
I have so many questions.
I'd just be
Again,
there
Mark,
for the zip line.
I just, the eyes scroll up there at times when they're around the pool, but outside of that, I just kind of watch golf
James,
videos on my phone.
Please tell us you have something other than Love Island.
I've been watching a lot of true crime stuff as of late. I haven't really watched any series, but I'm very curious. I got into true crime when I was a high school sports reporter because I had to drive a lot, and I started listening to podcasts, Serial, and others. The one that got me hooked for sure was Up and Vanished. If you all are into the true crime space, Crime Junkie. So I've been watching a lot of documentaries on missing people, murders, those types of things, and yeah.
Boy, Love Island and murders. Sign me up.
I mean, I want to get back into the Bear, but it's a stressful show.
It's a stressful
it stresses
show.
me out.
In what ways?
Oh, it's the whole.
If you ever worked in food, it feels like you're back in that stressful. Oh my gosh, I have all these orders. These people are being difficult at this table.
Yeah.
Do we have enough food? Did we oversell our kitchen? Like just all that type of stuff.
It's a guy who's coming back to his hometown of Chicago, trying to have a restaurant, and he's done all these high class like things. He's trying to make nice food and everything, but the pressure that comes with it, whether it's money and staffing and all that stuff, working with family also plays a big role in it. Just lots of drama in and outside of the kitchen. It is a fantastic show. It is one of my favorite shows. So season 4 is off to a very, very good start. 2 episodes in.
You know what I want to do one night here? Because, like, to me, this is summer. Like, the next, month or so until Colts training camp starts. I want to play the board game Life. Have you guys played that?
Yeah, I haven't played it in years, but yeah. Oh, that started a lot of fights in the family.
I used to love that board game. Is it still around? Like, could I go
it
to?
has to be.
Could I go to Target and buy it?
Yeah.
The Game of Life, right? Isn't that what it's called?
No, I think it was just Life, right?
I think it was literally just called Life.
Yeah.
See, but the thing with my family is they will break all the rules. You run out of money or run out of
that's one thing about these
rolls.
board games, man. You got to clarify rules at the start. You can't be getting deep into games and then all of a sudden you're looking at each other like, wait, is it this? Is it that?
Dude.
Let's Google this. Let's Google that. No.
Kevin,
we need some rules drawn up before
we used to play Monopoly as a family with my grandmother because she would watch us as kids. So she would watch me and my sister, my twin sister, and my cousin. So she would maybe be like, I don't know, 4 or 5 kids with my grandma. And she bust out the Monopoly. And then as soon as I'm getting ready to get grandma about to paint, she's going to ask.
You're going too small. You're doing the Patrick Beverly.
As soon as I'm about to get her about eviction notice, please. You ain't got no money left.
You're not on Love Island anymore,
yeah,
Grandma.
She's asking my sister and my cousins, can I borrow some money? I'm like, this isn't even in the rules. So we will play forever until somebody finally won in an ethical way, I guess, until grandma thought it was okay. But I'm like, nah. I'm not about to let you borrow money from her. This ain't even in the rules. I'm getting mad just thinking about it again.
Life you can purchase at Target for $14.49 today.
Oh, let's go.
See,
there's also Life Junior, what is that? What's the deal?
I don't know. I might be in the game aisle. It sounds like here after the show.
Are your
Mark
kids old enough
Dykton-
to do Operation?
Oh boy, you want to talk about a nervy game?
I knew very, very early on Mark Dykton was not going to be a surgeon of any sort.
I could feel myself shaking. Yeah, as if I needed to know or to learn anything else on why I wasn't going to be a surgeon. Mark Dykton, tremendous. That is I Got to Know with Mark. And Mark, are you and Eddie noon to 3 today?
Pulling double duty. Yeah, so I'm sticking around, and me and Eddie Garrison are driving the ship
And
at
then,
noon
may
to
I
3.
ask one more? Are you doing IST later on this week?
Friday and Saturday. Yeah, and I'm co-hosting with James tomorrow. So if you like Mark Dykton, you're going to get a lot of Mark Dykton. If you hate me, you are going to hate the radio for the next few days.
It is a bit vacation time on the fan.
Dinner on Mark, baby. He getting that money.
Jeff will be back on Monday. I will be out here coming up Friday, Monday, Tuesday, taking the golf trip of hopefully a lifetime out to Bandon Dunes in Oregon. Cannot wait for that. So, yes, it will be Mark and James for you tomorrow. But us 3, we will do it one final time here. This is the Fan Morning Show on a Thursday.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Let's reward a listener here for our final segment of the day. It's a 4-pack of Indy 11. This is the men's team taking on Vegas, correct, Mark? In our Jägermeister Cup?
Jägermeister Cup. I love it. I don't love Jägermeister, but I love the idea.
Gosh, that sounds absolutely excellent.
You offer me Jägermeister in a cup right now, I would probably pass out just looking at it.
Boy, I think I'd rather have mayo and a coffee, honestly, than I would
that
that.
Before, too.
This is Saturday night over at Carroll Stadium.
Birmingham, by the way, is who they're playing, not Vegas.
Birmingham. Why do I think Vegas? I don't know why I thought Vegas.
Probably because you're talking about your trip and you've got a layover in Vegas, which I'm jealous of.
Maybe that, hit the slot machines and try to pay for the entire trip. We'll see if we can do that. So give us a call, 317-239-1070. 4-pack of tickets, Indy 11, Birmingham, Saturday night. We'll give that away here as we round things out. James, we were half joking, half serious. You were talking about the DeWanna Bonner situation during the break. Again, the Fever waived her yesterday as she has expressed displeasure with her role, her playing time, however the environment. I don't know. I guess she hasn't been super clear about it, but I guess all those things are plausible. Wherever she goes, there better be a Fever home game left on that team's schedule. Because I need her back in the building, and I want to see Gainbridge Fieldhouse rocking a little bit, and, maybe the Hoosier hospitality can be put on hold for a couple hours.
Well, the pettiness in me certainly would love to cover that game, and it can go two ways. She could come back and ball out and be like, I told you so, or she could come back and the Fever win, and you're like, we told you so. So I'm always for conflict. As a reporter, you root for the conflict.
Her former team, the Fever, will be playing the LA Sparks tonight again. That is 7 o'clock, our coverage, 6:45. Reminder, the draft coming up tonight at 8 o'clock. Some names of note still on the board here. It's just round 2. Again, the Pacers will pick at 38 overall. You have Janai Broome out of Auburn, who obviously had a great college basketball season. You have Andrew Nemhard's little brother, Ryan Nemhard. Our Big East fans might recall Cam Jones, kind of powerful guard from Marquette. I mentioned the name Ryan Kalkbrenner, big dude from Creighton. Another Big East name still on the board. Brooks Barnheiser going to get drafted. I'm trying to think of some Indiana high school guys that could get drafted. We saw nothing last night, which was to be expected.
And then they have me. I'm still draft eligible. I could go out there and get you 6 fouls. I don't know about anything else, but yeah, I'm curious to see what happens in the second round for the Pacers in particular. How do they use this number 38 pick, which obviously they found to be valuable to move back up, but move back into the second round to get a second pick in that round. So curious to see what they do there, and also at number 54.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to bring up, James. Like, they did this for a reason.
Yeah.
And
they have to be eyeing somebody or somebodies, plural.
Right. And also, do we hear from Kevin Pritchard at all after tonight's? It's been a while since we've heard from the Pacers president, and not only would I be curious about that move specifically, but also, again, how does he view the offseason? How much did the Halliburton injury shift things? I know Rick Carlisle, we asked a lot of those to Rick, and Rick obviously has a strong voice in that organization, but, when it comes to the offseason, Kevin Pritchard's voice, is probably a little bit more prominent, so that'll be something to keep an eye on. Draft coverage begins at 8 o'clock. Are we rejoicing here in the state that John Calipari didn't have a player drafted in round 1 for the first time since 2009, or do we sit there in jealousy of that?
I will rejoice because, again, pettiness wins every time in these discussions. But, yeah, you probably want to have some more talent coming through when it comes to the pipeline from IU in particular and Purdue and others going to the NBA. But IU in particular.
Greg Campy, forever a legend in the state for what he did in the NCAA tournament.
I don't know if people feel that way right now.
Well, right now in Bloomington, you're just, small wins. I think is what you're going for.
I did see Darren DeVries out at the AC golf outing, which was I was so weird to see him in person. I was like, dang, I forgot that happened because so much was going on with the Pacers. I was like, wait a second, IU's supposed to have a little buzz for them and their new team, and they had a bunch of new transfer players in, and so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but soon enough I'll be living and dying with every IU possession like the rest of everybody else, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, yeah, that is Darren DeVries. He is the IU coach. I like it. And he kind of blends in outside of wearing, obviously, like, very nice team-specific apparel. And I assume he was making the rounds. What, didn't Carmel have a big shootout, the Charlie Hughes shootout this weekend?
Yes.
I saw Kyle Nenrup was up there with coverage on that, but I assume Darren DeVries, among others, were probably making an appearance there.
Yep, got it, man. Look, that honestly, I wonder. I would love to hear coaches who've done it at both levels, NBA or college, like which one is more taxing on you, because college it just seems like beyond just the coaching stuff, you have to recruit all the time.
Mark, we should try and get Kurt Cignetti back on. I mean, we are kind of nearing college football practices upcoming. What are we, probably 2 months away from the openers?
We're getting there. Yeah, it's coming
late
quick.
August, kind of. All right, boys.
Everything is quick because the season for the Pacers ended.
I know.
20 minutes ago.
June freaking 22nd. Boys, plan tomorrow. I assume you'll be recapping what the Pacers do tonight, and obviously a little Fever talk as well.
Yes, we'll have one of my buddies on tomorrow, Rafael Barlow, who is an NBA draft kind of scouting guru, does his own thing as far as some independent work, but he's phenomenal, very respected in the draft space. So he'll be able to break down the picks with us after they happen tonight.
Maybe some Colts talk, too, as well, and some silliness, of course.
Yes.
Maybe you'll have a training camp schedule to talk about.
Maybe someone from the PJ will get arrested again. I'll have to call you while you're on vacation.
Last time I was in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
This time flying through.
Don't you
Vegas.
get arrested on your golf trip, by the way?
Boy, I hope not. The only
Don't you know who I am? I'm Kevin Bowen.
Maybe a celebration for the first ever hole-in-one.
Oh, God. You're praying to the golf gods now.
Great Mizunos, if they can help me out in that area, would be an absolute joy of mine. Thank you to Matt Taylor. Thank you to Scott Agnes. Mark, James, enjoyed it. Again, reminder, Jeff will be back on Monday. I'll be back on Wednesday. We'll have you covered, though, throughout, as it is round 2 of the NBA draft tonight. Pacers pick at 38 and 54. Everybody have a great, great Thursday. We'll see you.